Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the Iron Fanfics, back with amazing fanfiction. This is the series of What if Deku had Mischief Lokison powers? Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. I am Loki of Asgard, and I am burdened with glorious purpose. Right? Okay sir, so how many are in your party again? 5-year-old Izuku Lokison couldn't help but giggle as his father sputters at the restaurant hostess words. His mother has the decency to at least try to hide her laughter behind her hand. It wasn't working. After confirming it was just the three of them, the hostess led them through the restaurant. Izuku followed behind his father while his mother stayed behind him. The boy couldn't help but look around as they went. It wasn't often they went out to eat as a whole family. Only for real special occasions. And his parents let him pick out whatever he wanted to wear. So of course he was proud of his tan cargo shorts and lime green shirt that read, pants. They were led to a booth where the hostess put down their menus and told them their server would be there soon. His parents thanked her and slid into the booth on one side. His father first, wearing one of his favorite outfits, a full black suit. Jacket, shirt, tie, and pants, everything black. But it went well with his slightly pale skin, comb-backed greasy black hair, and green eyes. His mother, Inko, flattened her blue skirt and slid in next to his father with her white undershirt and peach-colored cover-up. Izuku sat across from them. "Honey, you don't need to announce yourself every time we go somewhere," his mom lightly teased. His father gave a small sigh. "Well yes, I know. But how else will these people know who graces them with his presence?" Mom rubs his arm. "You know you don't have to be the god of mischief everywhere we go? You can just be my husband and Izuku's father." "No." Izuku decides to chime into the conversation. "I like Dad's mischief. More mischief." Dad gives Mom a little smirk. "See? At least someone appreciates my work." He shrugs a little before turning back to Izuku. "What do you say? Want to liven up tonight? Maybe I'll make a few snakes appear on some people's plates?" "Yes." "Loki, no." Mom chastises him while lightly swatting his shoulder. "Besides, I have a feeling there will be plenty of time for that after what happened last night." Izuku rewound the video on the computer again and hit play. It was the same one he always watched. All Might's debut video. Where he saved over 100 lives, all while smiling. That's who Izuku wanted to be. A hero who saved everybody with a smile. But no. "Sorry kid, it's not gonna happen." The doctor's words rang in his head over and over again. He didn't have a quirk. None at all. Even with a weak quirk, he could have made it work. But no, instead he had none. Could even still? He spun around in his chair, tears falling from his eyes to face his parents who watched him from the doorway. He pointed at All Might smile. "Do you think I could be a hero too?" His mother dropped to her knees and hugged him while crying, apologizing over and over. "Sorry kid, it's not gonna happen." Izuku hugged his mother back. Dad watched from the doorway, seemingly lost for words. His world was crumbling. There was only one thing he wanted to hear. "Sorry kid, it's not gonna happen." And it wasn't that. Just again and again in his head. That's all he can see. The doctor in his chair looking bored as he casually crushed his dreams. Just those words. Forever on repeat. "Sorry kid, it's not gonna happen." He heard his dad's breathing hitch. Izuku looked up and wiped his tears to properly look at him. But when he did, his father wasn't looking at him. Instead, he was staring off at something to the side of him. He wasn't moving. Wasn't blinking. Izuku turned his head to see what was there. And promptly screamed, falling off his chair. Mom whipped her head, screaming as she moved in front of Izuku. All three are now gazing at the new, fourth occupant of the room. It was the doctor. Plain as day. He sat on his chair, head leaning on his hand just as he did earlier. "Sorry kid, it's not gonna happen." He just continued to look bored. Waiting a minute before repeating the phrase, giving no acknowledgement to anyone else. "Izuku!" Both mother and son jumped as Dad rushed over kneeling beside them, grinning ear to ear. "Do you know what this is? Do you know what you've done?" he asked. He sounded more excited than Izuku had ever heard in his life. He looked over to Mom for help, but she looked just as lost as he did, probably wondering why he was asking Izuku for answers instead of demanding them from the teleporting doctor. Izuku shook his head, still holding on to Mom. Dad held his hands out. No, it's okay. Really, it's okay. Come here, let me show you. Slowly, Izuku detached and let himself be led over to the doctor. His father's grin never left his face. Go ahead, he said, gesturing to the doctor. Touch it. Izuku began to reach out before pulling back, looking one last time into his dad's own green eyes to be sure it was okay. With a nod, Izuku reached out again and touched the newcomer, only to yelp and snatch his hand back when instead of feeling the man's lab coat or just anything solid, his hand went straight through, creating a small green glow and what looked like TV static where his hand was. The green-haired boy stared at his hand, looking back and forth between it and the apparently static doctor. His dad got his attention again, his grin somehow getting wider. Izuku, that's an illusion. Understanding dawned on the greenette. Oh, it's like one of your mischiefs. Dad chucked a bit. Yes, Izuku. I make illusions. They're essentially pictures and movies I can bring to life anywhere. But as you saw, it's not real. Izuku tilted his head in confusion. Some might say he looked like a cute puppy as he did so. So why did you make this one? Dad put his hand on his shoulder. I didn't. That just confused the boy more. Well, then who did? His father just continued to stare at him. Izuku could swear he was vibrating. Which is great and all but doesn't answer his question. Hey, Izuku, let's analyze. There are 3 alive people in this room since the doctor is basically a hologram. So cool. Dad says he didn't make it, and Dad doesn't lie. So that leaves his mom. But wait, her quirk just attracts small things. Like pencils, erasers, utensils. Wait, what exactly is a small thing? How does the quirk determine that? Is it weight-based? That would make sense. Because while Izuku wouldn't consider himself too small, to someone like Dad or Uncle Thor, he was positively tiny. But he guesses the quirk doesn't count that. But what about the small things attached? To Izuku? Like in that movie Dad let him watch the other night while Mom slept, the villain cut the one hero's eye out. But the eye is tiny or small. So could his mom use her quirk to grab people's eyes while they're still attached? Or would they have to be cut out first? Dad said he cut out an eye once. Did he let Mom try out her quirk at that time? And what about the other body paw? A light squeeze on his shoulder brought him back. He looked up to see his father with a look of amusement on his face. He had been muttering, hadn't he? Alright, focus. The static doctor now. Asking Dad about eyeballs he's cut out later. So no, it couldn't have been Mom. And there can't be any invisible people in the room. Dad can always tell. So that just leaves me. Izuku asked, pointing to himself in disbelief. Yes. Dad cheered while shaking him a little. Yes, you Izuku. You created that illusion. Do you know what that means? Mom gasped behind them, putting a hand over her mouth. It means you have my powers. Izuku's brain had shut off and the rebooting process was taking a while. His father laughed at his stunned face. You may not have a quirk, son. But you got something even better. My magic. Why your magic? Why you mean I can do mischiefs? Like you? The boy asked, tears starting to fall again. You're going to be able to do so much, Izuku. Dad cheered. You'll be able to create illusions, hide yourself, conjure things, so much. And look at the illusion you just created by accident. At such a young age too, I think your illusions might even be better than mine. The tears were in free fall now and there was no stopping them. Does that mean, Izuku sniffled. Does that mean I can become a hero? For the first time, his dad's smile faltered, but only for a moment before returning. Oh, of course, Izuku. He clears his throat before continuing, his voice firm. Izuku, you'll have the power to be anything you want. To do anything you want. And if being a hero is what you want, then okay, you can be a hero. Loki felt his breath leave him as a tiny green blur slammed into his chest, clinging to him like a lifeline. None of them were sure how much time had passed while Izuku sobbed, but it didn't matter. The doctor faded away at some point. Izuku eventually pulled away, trying and failing to wipe away the last of his tears. He didn't get very far before being pulled into his mother's embrace. Both greenettes crying while Inko told her son over and over what a great hero he would be and how she'd support him every step of the way. A clap brought their attention back to Loki, who was running his hands together. Well, this calls for a celebration, don't you think? How about we go out to eat tomorrow night? Izuku nodded so fast, his tears began to splash both parents. Great then. And after that we can begin training. Izuku's tears finally stopped, staring wide-eyed. Tea training? You mean you're going to teach me? Well, of course. Unless you happen to know any other sorcerers. Yes. Izuku cried, getting on his feet. Yes. I want to learn from you. That's okay, right, Mom? Inko looked at her husband for a few moments. I'm okay with it. But nothing too intense right away. And she paused for another moment. And where will you be training him, Loki? I don't want to have to replace furniture or dig knives out of the wall after you two are done every time. Oh, Inko, you know we have more than enough in our finances to replace anything that might break. The glare from his wife made him reconsider for a moment. But I do know a secluded place we could practice. After a nod of approval from his mom, Izuku jumped into the air clapping. Yay! Can we start now? Both parents laughed before Loki responded. Not tonight, how about we go out to eat tomorrow and the next day we start? Okay. Izuku pumped his fists in the air. I'm gonna be a hero. Inko pumped her own fists in the air with her son, cheering with him. Loki watched on, only a small smile on his face now. Yes, Izuku. You're going to do great things. The waitress walks over to their table, brushing some of her off-white hair out of her face, and smiles. Hey guys, I'll be your server. Can I get you any drinks or anything to get started? Katsudan. Izuku helpfully provides. Inko laughed. We order our drinks, then our food, sweetie. Izuku pouts but relented. After they were done eating and the meal was paid for, the family began to make their way back towards the front of the restaurant, but before they could reach the doors, a scream pierces its way through the air. Everyone turns as a woman practically launches herself out of her seat. Snake! She screeches. Before anyone could react, another man halfway across the building also throws himself out of his booth. More and more people began to scream as small blue snakes slithered on the ground, snapping at people's feet. Inko grabbed her son as people rushed past them, pushing their way out of the building. She could only sigh. Loki, the aforementioned man, not so subtly holds his hand out to his son, who giggles and gives him a high five. Really, Inko darling, it was just a good bit of fun. Yeah, Mom. It was a funny joke. The family was walking back home, wanting to enjoy the crisp night air. Inko had just finished admonishing Loki for his prank. Is that so, Izuku? A funny joke? Were those people laughing? Even after the snakes disappeared? Well, you know, they still look pretty scared. But they were never in any real danger. And tell me this, what would have happened if while everyone ran, someone tripped and fell? The boy stares down at his feet while they were walking. He hadn't thought about that. They could have gotten hurt. That's right, and a hero doesn't hurt people, do they? Izuku has a horrified expression looking back up. No, never. A hero saves everybody no matter what. He always loved his father's pranks and jokes. He thought since nothing his father made was real, no one could ever get hurt, but Mom was right. He chewed his bottom lip. Can pranks go too far? No, Dad had never said anything about that being possible. So it wasn't right? Izuku, he hadn't even noticed when his mother had kneeled in front of him. Pranks can be okay. I'm just asking you to think about it a little bit before pulling them, okay? Yeah, okay, that made sense. After repeating it out loud for his mother, she stood up and looked her husband in the eye. And I expect that lesson to be reinforced during his training as well? Are we clear? They were all going to live uninteresting lives anyway. The least I could do was give them something to remember. Dad tries. Now Izuku had never seen his father get cold before, but even he shivers from how icy the look he got became. Very well. he concedes. They continue for a few minutes before being stopped by some noise coming from inside an alley they were passing. Izuku and his mom instinctively moved behind Dad. For a few seconds, there was nothing. But before any of them could assume it was a wild animal or something, a young woman, probably early to mid-20s, was thrown from the darkness, screaming until she hit the ground and went still. "Oh dear. Is she dead?" Loki asks. After a beat, he shrugs before beginning to walk away. "Izuku! Wait!" Inko cries, but it's too late. Her grip had relaxed due to shock, and at that moment Izuku had moved. He was nearly at the woman by the time his brain caught up with him. How did I get here? Well, he could worry about that later. This lady needs help. He crouches by her. "Miss? Are you okay?" Dumb question, Izuku. "She's bleeding from the head. She's clearly not okay. Stop being a Deku." Before his thoughts could continue, a new voice interrupted. "Well, this is annoying." Izuku's head snapped up to see 3 figures approaching from the alley. The one on the left was big with some type of bull mutation. The middle one was fairly plain looking with brown hair. The only notable feature is his slightly pointy ears. And the one on the right he couldn't tell at all as he wore snow pants, a winter coat with a scarf, a hat, and a ski mask on his face. The only body parts visible were his hands. It was the bull who had spoken in a deep baritone. He continues, "Listen folks, there's nothing to see here. We're just collecting some money owed to us and we'll be on our way." Izuku vaguely hears his mother on the phone as Dad walks up beside him. "Come now, Izuku." That got his attention. "What? Then she's hurt. We have to help." "Izuku, we don't have to do any dash. Heroes help people." Izuku retorts. "They save everybody. No matter what. Please." He couldn't understand why Dad didn't want to do anything. He was way more powerful than these villains. If you have the power to help, then you should. Loki sighs deeply before looking back at the 3 villains. "Well, I suppose there is something we could get from this." He looks back down at Izuku. "How about an impromptu first lesson on some of your powers?" Izuku nods rapidly. Anything to get Dad to help. He nods, walking forward. "I am Loki of Asgard," he announces, spreading his arms in front of him as a dagger appears in each hand seemingly from nowhere. "God of mischief. You all will be helping me give my son some important lessons, so do try not to embarrass yourselves." He turned his head slightly to address his son. "It's always good to add a bit of flourish, Izuku. Let those you face know they are beneath you." Pointy Ears laughs, jabbing his thumb at the self-proclaimed god. "Yo, what the F even is this guy?" he asks in a high-pitched voice. The bullman began scraping one leg on the ground, getting ready to charge. Loki took a few steps to the side so he was in front of a wall. "I don't care what he thinks he is. He's gonna be a puddle in a second." He roars, charging at Loki. However, instead of turning him into a red mist as the bullman expected, he runs through him like nothing's there, crashing into the wall. The bull cries out in pain, collapsing to the ground, grabbing his head. Loki appeared from thin air in a green light next to his counterpart, which promptly fades from existence. He half-turned to Izuku. "What I just did, Izuku, was use 2 techniques at the same time. I created an illusion of myself while at the same time hiding my presence. This will be one of the most important things for you to learn." He turns to fully face the stunned muggers. "And honestly? Attacking one at a time? I asked you not to embarrass yourselves. How is my son supposed to learn?" The 2 villains, broken from their stupor, yell and charge in at the same time as requested. Pointy Ears turns one of his arms into a full-length sword while the winter coat villain's hands become blue. Loki lazily raises his dagger and blocks the oncoming sword while lifting his other forearm. The blue hand villain grabs it and cheers. "Got you!" he yells, though his voice was somewhat muffled from his mask. "You see, Izuku." Loki continues. "Analysis, like your hobby, is very important as well." The villains growl in frustration. Pointy Ears tries a few more slashes but are all easily blocked while the other villain's hand seems to glow a bit brighter on Loki's arm. I could tell immediately from his stance that this gentleman has absolutely no form or skill with his sword. Hey! And the other is wrapped up warmly with glowing blue hands. Clearly, something to do with the cold. He turns to look at the winter coat villain, which I'm sorry to say, does not affect me. With that, Loki throws the winter villain off him. He hit the wall with a very audible crack and goes down. A swift kick to pointy ears and he was sent back down the alley. The bullman was back on his feet and charging once again. Loki merely stood there again and, like before, the bullman went through an illusion and smacks his head into the wall. Loki appears again from nowhere, dismissing his double. Really? He asks the bull writhing on the ground. 2 times? Really? It's almost like you don't want to help my son. I'll help him grow up without a dad. The winter villain was slowly getting to his feet. Wonderful! Loki calls out before fully turning to face Izuku. You won't be just limited to 1 copy of yourself. You can make plenty. To demonstrate, 12 copies of his father littered the alley. The perfect technique for confusion and distraction. Obviously, it's best if you use this before you're seen, but if you are, just hide your presence. He disappears in another green light to make his point. One of the Lokis went to stab the winter villain, but he dodges and moves his palm in its face, only for it to go straight through. He dances around a few more clones, his attacks going through all of them. Stop hiding! He yells in frustration. Okay. The villain screams in pain as a dagger stabs him in between his ribs from behind. He went down to 1 knee. Loki quickly grabs his arms and slashes both of his palms. The villain screams more before a final slap from the Asgardian renders him unconscious. Another flash of green light, the god was gone again, just before Pointy Ears ran back into the fray, only to be descended upon by just under a dozen clones. What the hell? He squeals, dodging their attacks. Loki appears crouching next to his son, gesturing to the armed swordsman. See? Distraction. The bullman was rising again, eyes zoning in on them. Izuku could swear he saw actual smoke coming from his nostrils. There are many ways you'll be able to use your illusion, decoys, clones, whatever you want to call them in battle. That was merely a small taste. The bullman began to ready his charge. Dad? As you saw, I slashed his palms. That was to nullify his abilities just in case. Of course, the better way would be to simply cut his hands off or just kill him. The bullman lowers himself. Okay, going back to that later. But right now, okay, Dad? But I know that can look bad here on Midgard. But knowing how to disable people brings us back to your analysis. Izuku? Are you getting all of this? The bullman charged. Dad! Loki exhales, standing up. With a quick flick of his wrist, 2 throwing knives fly and bury themselves into the bull's legs. He screeches in pain and falls to the ground, sliding to a stop in front of them. Along with daggers, throwing knives will probably be your most used weapon. Loki lectures, I'll make sure you're an expert with both, but don't worry, we'll look at other weapons too. A kick to the face and the bullman was out. Hey! The 2 magic users looked to see a very disheveled Pointy Ears glaring at them while panting. It seems he had run out of illusions. What the hell was that? As you can see, Izuku, Loki began, ignoring the last villain's comments. Letting enemies fight your decoys can also mess with their head, as well as drain stamina. The god of mischief saunters over to the man, making sure to literally walk on the bullman. Sirens began to sound nearby. Any questions, Izuku? The boy shook his head, still trying to process all the new information. His dad nods. Pointy Ears attempts to move his blade into Loki's stomach, but a simple sidestep reveals the man had severely overextended. Loki kicks the back of his knees, sending Pointy Ears to the ground, and with a quick hit to the head with the handle of the dagger, he's knocked out. Loki picks up Pointy Ears, followed by the winter villain, and dumps them over the bull. Izuku tilts his head as his dad places a hand on 2 of the villains' foreheads and emits a green glow. Dad, what are you doing? Is a simple enchantment, was the reply as a hand was moved to the last forehead. I'm going to make them forget the last few minutes. You can do that? Izuku yells incredulously. He remembers his dad mentioning he had powers that could affect people's minds, but he never thought it'd be something so in-depth. He also called it simple, which had to mean there were more complicated versions. How much memory could he erase? Could he make someone forget who they were completely? Could he erase certain memories, or did he have to go back chronologically? What about the inverse? Could he make people remember things they had forgotten? Oh my God. He's thinking so narrowly. Could this be expanded? Even to the point of brainwashing? False memories? The possibilities The ruffling of his hair brought Izuku back. Looking up, he saw his dad smiling down at him. As much as I love your tangents, my boy, we should get going. He was right. The sirens were pretty loud by this point. Loki reaches out and grabs Mom's hand next to him. When did she get there? And gently led her and Izuku away. Wait. Dad? When the attention of his parents was on him, he turns to look at the woman still lying on the ground. I just want to make sure she'll be okay. Another sigh from Loki. Very well. We've already gone this far. He stands in between mother and son, holding Izuku's hand and Inko's shoulder. Another soft green glow emerges, but nothing changes. They just stand there, staring at the woman. The emergency vehicles were coming down the street, only seconds away. Dad? Shouldn't we? It's quite all right. I'm hiding all of our presences right now. It's official. His dad is gonna make his brain explode tonight. Thinking about the number of notebooks he'll need for himself and Dad alone filled him with as much dread as it did excitement. You can hide the presence of multiple people? He shouts. Loki chuckles. Yes, I can, Izuku. And no need to lower your voice. We cannot be heard like this. The childish part of his brain told him to scream and test that theory. He held it in. For now. However, Dad continues, hiding your own presence will be difficult enough with everything I want to teach you. So I'm sorry, but it will probably be a few decades before you'll be able to hide multiple people. Izuku was ready to refute that, but the ambulances and police cars stopping on the street took his attention. He feels his shoulders sag seeing the paramedics start to work on the woman while the police work on securing the villains. Better. Does Dadas? Izuku can only nod his head. Now that the victim was safe, his brain had gone back to trying to process everything he had seen and was told. Come on. There's nothing else for us here. Loki leads his family away. They owe it. I want to learn about my powers, but can't the sun at least be fully up first? Izuku whines before going into a long, drawn-out yawn. It was true. The sky was still dark, with only a little light peeking over the horizon. Izuku himself wore a loose-fitting all-might shirt and black basketball shorts. Maybe he could deal with being awake earlier than should be legal, but combine all of that with the smell? No thank you. Why did they have to come to the trash-covered beach anyway? Sorry, Izuku, but we have a lot to cover and only 10 years before you enter that hero school, correct? Dad turns around from facing the ocean, looking down at him while they stand in the sand between the trash mounds. He wore his usual suit. So I've brought you to Dagoba Dash. Dagoba? Dad, I think the beach is called Takoba? No. I prefer Dagoba. Moving on. Loki takes a granola bar from his pocket and begins to eat it. This is where we'll train Izuku. This spot is secluded so we will not be disturbed while we practice magic, analysis, and combat. The trash should help you stay fit and build muscle. Truthfully, I'm not sure if you have my enhanced physical capabilities as of yet, so better to be safe. Izuku's eyes widen while he looks at the trash that towers over him. I guess that makes sense? I think I saw a car in here? And plenty of fridges. So I'll definitely build muscle, and I'll be picking up trash. It'll be like I'm doing something good for the community. Like All Might always talks about. Izuku whirls back to face his father in excitement, right as the man froze, throwing his granola wrapper into the nearest mound. Write that too. Now before we start, I'm going to give you some fundamental lessons that you should always remember. Loki crouches down in front of his son. Ready? Izuku nods in even more excitement. Your fights will not rely on pure combat ability. You have your illusions and mind. Those are what will decide most conflicts. Your ability to study your opponent and deduce their strengths and weaknesses will decide many contests before the first blow can be struck. You must always be 2 steps ahead. Make your opponent think they've figured out your trick, then strike. Understand so far? Yes, father. Izuku replies. You have to understand, Izuku, that you will not fight like All Might, or like most heroes. You will have to use trickery and deceit. If an opponent is stronger, that is no excuse to lose. You will have to be able to mentally manipulate them if you must. Make them see what you want them to see. Be in control of every situation. Is that something you think you can do? Izuku looks down for a minute, thinking it over. He always wanted to be a hero like All Might, saving people with a smile. It didn't sound like that would be exactly what he would be doing. But in the end, saving people and making sure they were safe is what mattered, right? Besides, after they were safe, he could always make them laugh with some pranks. Izuku looks back up at his father, determination burning in his eyes. I can do it. Good. Loki breathes out. There is one more thing. Izuku dips his head slightly. Due to the nature of your abilities and how you'll fight, Izuku, you must never allow anyone to see through them. If someone can see through your illusions and tricks, you lose control. Then, you and the people you are trying to save, die. How do I make sure no one can see through them? You can never let anyone get too close to you. You, Izuku, have to become an illusion yourself to others. Again, make them see only what you want them to see. No living being is perfect. If you allow others to get close, they may be able to start to notice the difference between you and your illusions. They may even predict how you move when you erase your presence. Understand? Izuku shrugs and nods. Not like that would ever be hard. Since his quirk was late, KageNekem had made sure he was isolated at school and everywhere else. Whatever it takes to save people. All right. Dad hit his knees, standing back up. Shall we begin, my young prince of mischief? Loki Lokison opens his eyes with a gasp. Then immediately closes them, wincing in pain from the throbbing in his head. Astral projecting himself so far in the universe always took a toll on him. He stands up and looks around the usual meeting spot. A comet floating listlessly in space. The terrain was hard and jagged. The stars above him, endless. He looks down to see, as he wanted, he's in his green and gold armor. A dark green cape behind him and a gold helmet with curved horns sticking out. Asgardian. An annoyingly familiar and somewhat nasally voice says from behind him. Loki turns to meet the other occupant of this lovely rock. His gray skin was wrinkled with white hair coming from the back of his head. He stands with his hands behind the back of his gray and gold armor. Loki mirrors his posture. I was expecting to finally meet him tonight, Loki began, only hiding his frustration a little. He will meet with you when he declares you are worth meeting. For his judgment is absolute. Right? Loki responds, only years of practice stopping him from rolling his eyes. Well, I thought since I am not only preparing Asgard for your forces, but Midgard as well, he might wish to speak with me in person. Or as close as this is. Terra is merely a bonus as of now. His conversation partner draws on. Now that its people have had time to settle with their new abilities, they could make excellent conscripts for our forces. A nice bonus, but not required. Not nearly as important as the item Odin protects. And you shall have it, so long as I also have what I desire. Now, why did you call upon me? The Master of Wrinkles took his time in answering. Terra is unimportant as of now. However, there have been, shall we say, stirrings? The peace Odin protects may not be the only one left. I beg your pardon? Okay, that threw Loki for a loop. And he should know. He made his entire life on throwing people for loops. What do you mean not the only one? The rest were destroyed centuries ago, there are no more. Perhaps. So, if even one other remains, it must be found. Only he is mighty enough to wield them. And with Terra being left to its own devices for quite some time now, it may be there. We will need you to confirm this. Loki clenches his fist behind him. I will do what I can. Very well. Taking the dismissal for what it was, Loki turns around and begins to let his projection go, but before he could, the others spoke up again. Curious. Loki turns halfway to look back. I am curious. We do not have much information on Terra. How do you plan to prepare mankind for our arrival? Tell me. The god of mischief merely smiles. Now where's the fun in that? It occurs to Izuku after the 11th? No, the 12th time he lands face first into sand that morning, that if he never saw a beach again after today, he'd be perfectly okay with that. Seriously. He knows everyone makes fun of that pre-quirk movie for saying it, but it's true, he really hates sand. And it literally does get everywhere. Where is the lie? For the last 8 years, there hasn't been a single day he hasn't felt sand on him. Well, I think that's enough combat practice this morning. Unless you want another bout, of course. Izuku lets out a loud groan at his torment. Dad's words. He rolls onto his side, clutching his stomach. The greenette uses the hand not supporting himself to wipe some sand off his face before opening his eyes to look up at his father's smug look. You said we weren't using magic for those spars. He tries to make his tone accusatory, but the pain and aches make it more of a whimper. Is that what I said? He retorts, raising an eyebrow. Yeah. Izuku shouts, getting himself into a sitting position and leaning back on his hands. And I had you. Dagger to your throat and everything. But then you cheated and hit me with an energy blast. Right, so what did you learn? Dad asks while putting his hands behind his back. Teeth not to trust you. His father has the gall to laugh, closing his eyes and bending forward a bit. Wait, he's distracted. Izuku conjures a throwing knife into his hand, a green glow appearing briefly as with everything he conjures or vanishes. He whips it at Loki's shoulder, only for the god to catch it midair, his eyes still closed and not even a break in the laughter. Dad takes a deep breath before straightening up. Oh Izuku, not trusting me should have been one of the first things you learned. He looks down at the knife before vanishing it. That was underhanded. You make me more proud every day. That earns another groan as Izuku lets himself fall into his back. Let me try another question. What did I say before we started sparring? You said no magic, just regular sparring. Izuku immediately replies, grateful to have a few minutes to fill his lungs. No. Try again. Izuku scrunches up his face in thought, thinking back. That is what he said, right? Well, technically not. What he actually said was, you said I wasn't supposed to use magic? Izuku facepalms. But you never said you weren't allowed to use it. Izuku feels himself being picked up into the air. That's right, Izuku. Tricksters like us live and breathe in technicalities. It's how we keep ourselves from getting into too much trouble. Izuku looks at his father to see his hands still behind his back. He blinks before looking at himself, floating, held up by seemingly nothing. The teen narrowed his eyes on his dad. Really? First the energy blast and now telekinesis? Is it, let's rub it in Izuku's face with what powers he can't use our? You want to come over here and brainwash me while we're at it? Izuku was lowered onto his wobbly legs, thankfully still able to stand before Loki answers. Izuku, the best brainwashers can do it without the use of any powers. The younger magic user rolls his eyes. He had to get to school soon and the tangents on manipulation could go on for hours. And those are powers you can't use yet. I know you'll get there one day. Besides, brainwashing only works on the weak-minded. Which, you are most certainly not. It will never cease to infuriate Izuku how quickly he could go from wanting to stab his father to preening at his praise. Now, let's see how much your magic has progressed since my last visit. Loki continues. Izuku stands straight and nods. Show me how you hide your pre-dash. Loki quickly turns to block the slash from the real Izuku behind him. Their daggers make a loud clang as they collide. They separate and Loki looks behind him at the decoy that had stood in front of him. It gives a simple wave before fading. Very good, Izuku. I say you've mastered both hiding your presence and leaving a decoy to take your place. Now show me multiple decoys. Izuku complies, taking a step back. 9 perfect copies of himself appear surrounding both of them. So, 10 of you in total? Remember, I want a dozen before high school. Right, I'm still working on it, father. The Izuku decoy nearest Loki says. The man nods. Now, transformations. The decoys fade, leaving a single Izuku. Notably, he is not standing where he initially started. Oh, you've started switching places with your decoys when you make copies? We haven't gotten to that yet. Izuku shrugs. Honestly, it wasn't that hard. I didn't want an opponent faster than me being able to rush me. That's my boy. Always thinking ahead. Now shapeshift. Izuku nods again and lets multiple glowing green lines appear and travel across his body. In a second, where Izuku stood before, All Might now appears in his current costume. Have no fear. But because I am here. He shouts proudly in a perfect imitation of the hero's voice. Loki can only give a deadpan stare. Izuku. I deal with enough blundering blonde buffoons in Asgard, I don't need them here either. The All Might copy lets out a thunderous laugh before resorting back to Izuku. Ah, Dad, don't be like that. Besides, you make a great Uncle Thor. In a green flash, Loki is gone. Standing there now, a muscular man wearing silver-plated armor from his chest down to his legs. A red cape behind him. Golden hair on his head and equally golden short-trimmed beard on his face. Blue eyes narrowed dangerously. While I'm happy your transformation of others is going well. The Thor copy starts with Loki's voice. If you don't turn me back, rig dash. Wait! Izuku interrupts the threat. With a wave of his hand, a large silver hammer with a leather grip appears in Thor's hand. Sorry about that, Dad. Now it's done. Then look, you can finally lift Mjolnir. Thor's eye twitches and Izuku just smiles innocently. The subsequent energy blast and his 13th landing in the sand were totally worth it. After getting home and showering, Izuku toweled off and looked in the mirror to see his hair was already starting to regain its poof. He was pretty sure he couldn't control it even with magic. Yellow glowing lines danced across his body for a moment before leaving him wearing his middle school uniform. When was the last time he physically changed his clothes? He couldn't remember. He could still do it though, honest. Everyone knows you put your pants on 2 legs at a time, simple. Making sure he had everything he needed for school, Izuku quickly vanishes his backpack and makes his way to the train station. He really wished his dad could explain his conjuring power better. He made his notebook appear from thin air and started to write his thoughts, even as he got on the train. He knew he could conjure and vanish anything in his possession. The first part was simple, he could do anything on his body. For example, his phone. If one of his phones was in his pocket, he could conjure it right to his hand, check hero forums, and then vanish it right back into his pocket. And he could do that with anything on his person. The problem was the other stuff. To put it simply, he didn't know where his backpack was right now. Apparently, Dad never got a straightforward answer from Frigga, Izuku's grandmother, before she died, but they can also conjure and vanish items too, somewhere, as long as they aren't too big. Running theory is they each have access to their own small pocket dimension. He's been able to keep school supplies, notebooks, extra daggers, and knives there. So far the biggest thing he's been able to vanish is a microwave. Will his pocket dimension, or whatever it is, grow with time? He's not sure. All he knows is he can vanish stuff there and then conjure them right back to his hands whenever he wants. The train slows to a stop and Izuku gets off walking to Aldra, probably getting a few weird looks for obviously being a student but having no supplies apart from a notebook. A key part of being an illusionist is the element of surprise, so even if he's attacked, something as simple as having a backpack that no one knew was there could be enough to throw his assailants off. Plus it keeps people on their toes around him. Every little bit helps. A few more minutes and Izuku is walking through the front gate. He stares up at the ominous building as he walks in. Without fail every time, he feels like a prisoner marching toward his execution here. After just figuring out astral projection, he wants to use it so bad. Sure, he could only use it on a single decoy right now and he'd have to be within a few blocks of the school while he worked on expanding the distance, but it's still doable. To be able to perceive the world around him and communicate with people through a decoy would make things so much easier. He wouldn't have to be in the building and no one would know. As long as no one touches him, or explodes him, actually it might not work. Walking through the halls to homeroom went about as expected. The usual jeers for his weak, or villainous quirk were called out to him. Of course, he had only shown them barely a fraction of what his powers could do, and really? Would using tricks to beat a villain really be that bad? At least he only had 2 more years of middle school and then he'd be off to you where things would probably be more or less the same. Shaking his head to clear his thoughts, Izuku opens the door to his classroom to more familiar sights. His teacher resting his head on an arm while lazily scrolling through his phone. Everyone else talking in their social groups, letting Izuku slip by to his desk in the back corner ignored. Well, mostly ignored. He pointedly did not acknowledge the glaring red eyes that followed him since he entered. The teenage illusionist plops down on his chair and conjures his backpack before going through and pulling out the supplies he'd need. No quirk use in class Midoriya. His teacher calls out without looking up. It's not a quirk, sensei. He calls back. Those red eyes somehow glare harder. The man just hums in response. Obviously not paid enough to respond. Not like Aldra enforced their no quirk use policies anyway. Which may sound like a dream at first, but in actuality was a go-ahead for the kids with stronger quirks to do whatever they wanted. Well, not if Izuku had anything to say about it. The school day passes by uneventfully. Well, except for having to pull 2 kids out of Kaken's way and some rats just appearing out of nowhere on a girl's head while she berated another girl. But that was all pretty normal, so yeah, uneventful. Vanishing his backpack and hiding his presence was second nature at this point when the final bell rang. In a few minutes, he had slipped off of school grounds unnoticed and was on his way to the grocery store. Mom was working late again, so he offered to get some things for dinner on his way home. It would be easier if he could just use the Bifrost to teleport everywhere he wanted to go, but Heimdall said he couldn't. Izuku's pretty sure the man was just jealous he didn't think of it first. Letting his powers change his clothes into something more casual before entering some busier sidewalks, Izuku began making his way toward the store. Sure, while teleporting everywhere with the Bifrost was a good idea, of course it was, he would miss out on his walks where things would go conveniently right for people. Old man having trouble crossing the street? Oh, would you look at that, it looks like all the lights turned red, stopping the cars and allowing the man to cross. A purse snatcher running down the street thinking he's got away with it, only when he thinks his foot is about to step on a manhole cover, said cover fades away causing him to fall in, almost as if the cover was never there. He must have been seeing things. Dude, alligators aren't that scary. Izuku stops at the edge of a park, listening to a few boys from a different middle school. I know right, with those stubby legs and sheet, says a second boy. All you have to do is step up on something a couple of meters high and the thing can't do anything to you. A third agrees. Izuku sighs. He doesn't have a choice, does he? The greenette steps behind a tree and a few seconds later, as the boys pass, their laughter dies to a low growl. They spin around to see an alligator charging them like the still-living dinosaur it is. The 3 boys scream, 2 immediately bolting while the first boy trips on his own feet and falls. Does he have a make everything like it's a horror movie quirk or something? Still, he started the slight on the gators, so he must pay. Gator Izuku bites on the boy's pant leg, careful to use the tip of his mouth and not get any skin while shaking the leg a bit. The boy screams more, starting to yell he was sorry over and over. He gets it. Izuku lets go and the boy scrambles away. After making sure the coast was clear, Izuku allows his transformation to fall, rolling on the ground cackling. He can't use his powers to solely help every time. Also, it's not illegal quirk usage if it's not a quirk. The trickster gets composed before making himself scarce. He didn't want to be around just in case anyone came around looking for a loose gator, so taking a shortcut through the park it was. It's the demon girl. Or at least that was the plan for the last few minutes. Izuku stopped to see what looked like 5 elementary school-aged girls under the shade of one of the bigger trees in the park. 4 of the girls had the smallest one backed against the tree. In between the other girls, he could see the one on the tree had small horns on her head, red hair, black leathery wings on her back, and a long sharp tail she was wrapping around herself. Izuku's instincts go off in the back of his head. He's being watched. And he knows exactly who. But the Half-Asgardian doesn't care. He's got something to take care of first. Don't get too close or she'll drag you to hell. Another girl berates. You're right, we need something to throw. Oh, see how many rocks you can find. Hey, The four girls look up to see a police officer looking down at them, scowling. Is there a problem here? The girl who had suggested finding rocks looks down. No, sir, she says through gritted teeth. I hope not. The officer replies. Assaulting anyone in school or not can get you in a lot of trouble no matter your age. The guilty girls still. Maybe we should find your parents? No. The lead girl cries looking up. We won't do anything like this again, we swear. Right. The other girls are quick to agree. The officer begins to swing a pair of HNDCFFS on a finger. Are you sure? Maybe you'd like to see what a cell looks like, just in case. The girls all bow. We'll be good. Promise. The man PPS his head to the side once the girls look up. Get out of here. And they do. You'd think they were the ones being chased by a gator. He bends down to look over the still trembling girl. After waiting for a few seconds, he smiles, putting his finger to his lips, letting green lines trace over his body to reveal Izuku. Are you okay? Instead of answering, the little girl asks, "Why would you help me?" Why wouldn't I? Izuku counters. Because I'm a demon. Now why would you say that? The little girl gestures to her wings and flaps to emphasize. Izuku hums, putting a finger under his chin. What's your name? Hiromi Yoshinaga. Well, Yoshinaga. Do you act like a demon? What? The girl seemed so stunned by the question that it took away her stutter. Are you a nice person? Izuku amends a bit. Always. I like it when everyone is happy. That's great. Izuku smiled at her. Not his million what or whatever his mom calls it, but a smaller one. So does a demon like when everybody is happy? No. Demons want everyone to be sad. That's right. So if a demon wants everyone to be sad, but you want everyone to be happy, then how are you a demon? Yoshinaga opens her mouth and closes it a few times, trying to think of a response before lamely gesturing to her wings again. Izuku chuckles a bit. It's not the quirk that makes the person, it's how you act. And with you wanting to make everyone happy, I'd say that makes you more of an angel. Right. The girl's breath gets caught in her throat and stares at Izuku for a full minute slack-jawed. It almost gets to the point where the boy wants to pull out a mirror to make sure there's nothing on his face before tears decorate her face. The red-haired girl charges Izuku, sobbing into his chest, thanking him over and over. Izuku can't stop a few tears of his own while wrapping the girl into a hug, letting her cry it out. After 5 minutes, Izuku can feel his watcher getting impatient, and Yoshinaga definitely doesn't need to be anywhere near here when that goes off. Thankfully, the girl lets him go, but not without a few more thank yous. You're gonna do great things, Izuku tells her. Why don't you head home and get cleaned up, maybe start on some homework? Oh, and how about we keep me transforming into that police officer our little secret, okay? The little girl giggles a bit through the last of her tears, wings flapping, probably involuntary. She nods and Izuku stands up, giving her one more hug before she runs off, waving him goodbye. Izuku waves back, waiting until she is clear out of sight before dropping his hands into his pockets and sighing. Come on out, Kaken, before you set the park on fire. Katsuki Bakugo stomps out from a shaded area, smoke rising from his tightly clenched fists. Izuku swears he can hear his teeth grinding from where he is. Deku. Kaken spits the name out like it disgusts him. Wait, it does? Izuku smiles, knowing it'll just irritate him more. Hey Kaken, did you enjoy the show? Listen, if you want to lecture me on quirk use, we both know my old scars say you have no problem with that. Unfortunately, it took a good few years for Izuku to learn how to do anything worthwhile with his magic, so that left him helpless to Kaken and everyone else. One of the first things he ever learned was how to use illusions to cover up his bruises and burns. Dad is rarely physically home to see through it, and it fooled Mom well enough. The blonde boy, who might as well have steam coming out of his ears, stomps up until he's just under a meter away from the other. Where do you get off? He asks through barely controlled rage. Izuku tilts his head a bit. Huh? Where? Do you get off, Deku? Izuku shrugs. Usually in the shower. I guess it'd be rude not to ask, so how about you? Kaken's anger seems to leave him for a few seconds as he processes Izuku's response. In the shower? What the F are yo dash? He stops and Izuku smirks, seeing a light blush of embarrassment on the other boy's face. It's quickly replaced by his old anger multiplied tenfold. Kaken yells, lunging forward to grab Izuku, only for his hands to go through a decoy. Izuku reappears in front of the tree Yoshinaga was backed up against, hands still in his pockets. That wasn't very nice, Kaken. I thought we were having a simple conversation? The explosion quirk user trudges forward, moving a finger in Izuku's face. Where the F do you get off saving some random extra Deku? Now Izuku feels genuinely confused. She needed help? That's pretty much all there was to it? Kaken does not relent. I know you knew I was watching you, shitty nerd. What? You think I couldn't save her? You think you could ever do a better job than me? Well, no, but I figured unless there was some big villain there, the almighty King Explosion Murder wouldn't dare waste his time. Why dash? The called-out Explosion Murder god doesn't let him finish, whirling an explosion-ridden fist at his face. Only for, again, the fist to go through the decoy and hit the tree. The Pomeranian howls in pain, grabbing his hand. Izuku appeared to the side of him, looking disappointed. Are you ever not going to fall for that? Kaken seemed to think better about attacking, at least for now. Listen here, Deku, no one needs help from a worthless sheet like you. All your quirk will ever be good for is party tricks at some snot-nosed kid's birthday party. Stop trying to be a hero. He raised his good hand and let loose a few small explosions in warning. Kaken, Izuku warned. Don't make me have to bring out your weakness. Red eyes widened as Izuku waved his hand and an object appeared. That's right, a small cup of water. Izuku was always taught to do things logically. On his list of things to do that day were to annoy Kaken and go out for a run. No reason he couldn't combine those. Izuku arrived home to find his apartment as he usually did, empty. Setting the groceries down on the counter, he got to work preparing dinner for himself and Mom. He'd just leave her portion in the fridge. Heating the pans and starting to slice the vegetables was a nice distraction but didn't last very long. Mom had taken another shift at the hospital again. He understood her reasoning. As in, he understood why it made sense to her, but not him. Dad had enough wealth that they could live off of their entire lives without either needing a job, and he readily offered it. But Mom wouldn't have it. Sure, if he needed something like a new laptop or some hero merch he really wanted, she'd dip for it, but other than that, Mom wanted to be able to provide for them herself. Probably something to do with her pride. And he got that from her perspective, he just wished she was home more. Still, she was home more than Dad at least. Though he has good reasons, Izuku hopes anyway. After their first year of training, Dad always said he had Asgardian stuff to take care of. He told Izuku how to do things and expected him to practice while he was away. Every now and then he'd check in as an astral projection, but physically he only came home for a week every 5 to 6 months. At least it makes the cover story of Hisashi Midoriya working abroad more accurate. Izuku thinks bitterly. But when his dad came home, it always came with the added bonus that he takes Izuku to see his uncle and grandfather in Asgard for a couple of days, so that was something. They were set to leave tomorrow morning. He couldn't wait to show what he'd learned to Uncle Thor. Oh, that smells good. Izuku groans, looking over to see a decoy of himself sitting on the counter, sniffing the air. You can't smell, Izuku explains, very much letting the irritation bleed into his voice. Izuku, it's like you're trying to hurt us. The decoy says, clutching his chest in mock hurt. The real Izuku stirs the food on the stove. Hey Tu, I don't remember calling you. And why do we need to be called to spend time with our best bud? And he's right. The food is looking delicious, my man. Decoy 4 says, sliding next to him. Also, 6 is raiding your fridge. I'm thirsty. You can't drink, you're not real. I can dream, Izuku. No. You literally can't. And who's to say who the real one is? Izuku let his head hit the counter, hoping it would knock him out. No luck it seems. He turns to see 5 standing on the coffee table. For all we know, I am the real Izuku and you're all my duplicates. A flying chopstick that goes through 5 seems to disprove his point. Izuku taps another chopstick on his head, showing he's solid. 5 folds his arm and pouts. One day I'll get you guys. What is my life? Izuku whines. Well, it seems you've taken talking to yourself to an extreme, seeing as you don't have anyone real to talk to. You needed some sort of outlet before you went crazy. Decoy 3 says a bit quickly, appearing next to 2. Izuku wraps up his mom's portion for the fridge and brings his plate to the living room, sitting down and turning on the TV. Talking to 5 copies of myself because I have no friends is the definition of mentally stable. Well, actually the definition is dash. Not what I was asking for. 3. Izuku stops flipping the channels at the local news, the headline catching his eye. Just to repeat, all residents are urged to be on the lookout for what has been reported as a loose alligator. If spotted, do not approach. Please inform the nearest officer or hero. It is said to be highly dangerous. Izuku can't help but laugh along with his decoys, all sitting in the living room with him. Yup, just another day. While the need for secrecy was not lost on Izuku, it still made him no less bitter while he trudged through the forest that was a ways away from home. A low tree branch slapped his shin, causing the teen to yelp and grab his leg, hopping on one foot. That's it. I don't care what they say. I am finding a way to get a dagger that can summon the Bifrost, or I'm stealing Stormbreaker from the vault. Unlikely. Izuku turns to the side as he begins walking again to see Decoy 3 walking beside him. Unlike his physical counterpart, he was unperturbed by his surroundings. The chances of you being able to sneak into Odin's vault, grab Stormbreaker, and sneak out without being seen are approximately 3,720 to 1. Izuku chucked at his doppelganger. Never tell me the odds. And that's not even factoring you trying to leave Asgard. Wait. Once I have Stormbreaker, couldn't I just call on the Bifrost while inside the vault to get out? Izuku asks himself because yes, this is what he's had to resort to have any semblance of a normal conversation with someone. 3 put his hand to his chin. That's true. As far as we know, there are no limits on Stormbreaker's ability to call the Bifrost from anywhere. This is, of course, all hypothetical in the case we are actually able to lift the weapon without our body crumbling and our mind collapsing into madness. Bold of you to assume my mind hasn't already collapsed. The completely sane teenager snarks. Then we must not be doing our jobs right. Izuku had long since run out of size for the day, so he did nothing as 2 appeared, sitting on his shoulders. He could take at least a little comfort in the knowledge that his decoys, not being real, didn't weigh anything. However little comfort it gave. 2 continues, he can still make jokes. His will to live carries on. Yeah dude, we knew you could do it. 4 encourages while hopping from tree branch to tree branch above. And I'm not just saying that 'cause without you, we'd cease to exist. You should be fine, Izuku. Ectoplasm is a fine hero and he can make clones as well. A lot more than you, I might add. 3 says, actually, I was thinking about ectoplasm the other day. Izuku starts. So to make his clones he needs to produce that weird ectoplasm from his mouth, right? He's not like you guys that can just annoyingly appear from anywhere. 2 nods. Hurtful but true. So while I wouldn't want him to ever get hurt, what happens if a villain just stops his ability to open his mouth? No more clones, right? It's silent for a beat before 2 and 4 burst out laughing. The latter so much so, he falls out of the tree he's in. Oh my god bro, his weakness is duct tape. 4 shrieks from his curled up position on the front. Izuku giggles along until 3 begins to speak, bringing them all back to earth. Not literally in the case of 4 this time. While entertaining of an idea it is, ectoplasm exceeds in close quarters combat situations. We're no slouch up close either. 2 interjects. Also true. 3 agrees. But even assuming we are a match, we would have to fight while trying to stick tape across the hero's mouth. Keep in mind it has to cover the whole thing completely, as any ectoplasm that leaks leads to clones. All of this while contending with possibly already created copies. And if after all of that we somehow get the tape on his mouth, what stops him from simply taking it off? Izuku's hands race across his conjured notebook. What about a sneak attack? He asks, tapping his pencil on his cheek. It's kind of our bread and butter. For finally catches up with them. You guys are just gonna leave a brother behind like that? 3 ignores him. A sneak attack would solve the problem of already created clones. And though the tape may only stay on a few seconds, that should be all we need. We can easily overwhelm and confuse him with our own clones, and given how his fighting style only uses his legs, our daggers are more than capable of removing them. Wait, removing his legs? Isn't that a bit much? Izuku asks, both of his arms flailing in front of him. Not necessarily in ectoplasm's case. 3 continues, completely ignoring Izuku's internal crisis of subconsciously knowing he is the one to have thought that. While I would understand your hesitance in, say, removing 13's hands to incapacitate her. Izuku whines. Ectoplasm's legs are prosthetic. Izuku takes a deep breath before giving a nervous chuckle. Well, I guess some of Dad's lessons stuck with me better than I thought. Thinking back on his notebooks, it's what he had always done. Studied heroes, figured out the places they were weakest, and then came up with ways to mitigate those weaknesses. But now that he thought about it, hey yo, you guys realize that it would be bad if our notebooks ended up in the wrong hands, right? It was 4 to voice his thoughts. Well then, coding them is the obvious answer. Or we just write them in Asgardian, Izuku suggests. Translate the old ones and write the new ones in it. No one on Earth should speak the language. 3 takes a moment before answering. That should be enough. Between the language and the fact that our notebooks spend most of their time vanished, we shouldn't have to worry. What an excellent brainstorm we just had. New security measures and how to beat ectoplasm. You sound pretty confident. Weren't you just the one saying we shouldn't underestimate a pro? While Izuku can't see it, he can just hear the cocky smile on 2's face as he says that. 3 gives his own small smile. I'm just confident in our analysis and abilities. Let's go, we're gonna take down ectoplasm. Izuku quickly snaps his notebook shut at 4's exclamation, letting the book vanish as he does. No. We're just practicing our analysis, and maybe if they're good enough one day, we can show our entries to heroes like ectoplasm if we get into UA. Hey, none of that. 2 bends forward so the decoy and Izuku can look at each other face to face. When we get into UA, young man. Come on, you'll be out of the Aldra system. Just think of the tricks we can pull on people who have no idea what's coming. Izuku laughs before a look of horror spreads across his face. Oh my god, I'm gonna get expelled from you. All 4 of them break out into laughter after that one. 3 shakes his head, calming down a bit. Just don't go too far, Izuku. We still want to be a hero, right? Can't do that if we get expelled. Pif, you act like I'm not totally ready to go vigilante. Izuku, that's illegal. Actually, don't you dare. Vigilantism is defined as someone using their quirk illegally, and since we don't have a quirk, that only works if everyone knows it's not a quirk and no one will believe you. Fine. Then it's only illegal if we get caught. And I can be in multiple places at once and can turn invisible. 2 and 4 cheer, sharing a high five while 3 has a look of exasperation Izuku hopes he can achieve one day. The group walks in silence for a few minutes before the maybe one day vigilante speaks up. His voice carrying a much more serious tone. I'm gonna be a hero. The right way, he says out loud. They all know he's not saying it to anyone in particular, but making more of a declaration. I want to save people. I want to make them laugh on their worst days and help them see it's going to be all right. He clenches his fist so hard his nails start to dig into his palm. And no law is ever going to stop me from saving someone's life. 3 gives a reassuring nod. I know, Izuku. Alright, enough with all the serious stuff. 2 exclaims, throwing his hands up. We figured out how to beat ectoplasm with duct tape, now let's do another hero we like. What about Eraserhead? Oh, Eraserhead is easy. All I'd have to do is shapeshift into a cat and he'd be putty in my hands. Izuku says with probably too much cheer. 2 finally decides to slide off Izuku's shoulders and walk next to him. Wait, he likes cats that much? How do you know? Izuku has a different notebook appear in his hand and flips through it before finding the page he wants. It's just a hypothesis based on this cat cafe he frequents. 2 continues to stare. But that makes sense. Follow-up question. How do we know the elusive underground hero visits a cat cafe a lot? Izuku flips to another page in his notebook. Just some periodic checks through the city's camera system. And exactly why can we dash? Their password was password. It's not my fault. And it's never for anything bad. Usually just for different angles on hero fights I didn't see in person. Before the conversation could devolve into the usual shouting, 3's voice cut through. And we are here. Izuku nearly trips before looking straight to see the line of trees that borders the clearing he uses. When did we? Izuku questions. Slaps his back. Izuku doesn't feel it, but the sentiment is there. You know we're useful for more than helping you with your mumbling, right, man? The Mumble Squad is here to help you pass the time when you need it. 2 pumps his fists into the air. That name is still pending. 3 says with a fond smile on his face that suggests he's more okay with it than he's letting on. You guys are ridiculous, Izuku says, letting the notebook in his hands fade. But try as he might, he can't stop the edges of his mouth from curling up. I'll see you later. The teenager gives a wave as he moves between the trees in front of him. His decoys vanish behind him. After a few seconds, Izuku emerges into the familiar clearing he uses to go visit his family. A line of trees encircles the entire thing, short grass blows in the wind. The clearing itself, while not exactly big, wasn't very small either. If Izuku had to guess, 20 or so people could probably fit. And in the middle, pattern-like markings lay scorched into the grass. Izuku walks into the middle of the markings, taking a deep breath. I'm ready, Heimdall. For a moment, nothing. Then, a rainbow light seems to take over the sky. The wind around him starts to move at a furious pace as a tornado of rainbow light crashes into the spot Izuku is standing in. It stays that way for only seconds before the light disappears completely. The wind dies down. You would never know anything was amiss. It's as if the light was never there. The only evidence is freshly scorched markings on the grass. Izuku is gone. But that's all Izuku can see. Multicolored lights danced around him, forming a tube. Outside the lights of the Bifrost, the colors of the universe soar past him at alarming speeds. He sees the black of space, the twinkling of the stars, and the different colors of the many, many galaxies he races past. It feels as if he's flying through space, being carried up to a bright white light above. He briefly wonders if death is anything like this. If it was, he could see why people would have to be begged to not go towards the light because the ride there is exhilarating. But all too soon he knows it's only been seconds but could never tell. Izuku takes an extra step to stay on his feet as he lands and looks up to see a familiar circular room. The walls of the room were colored golden with gears surrounding him. Behind him, a hole in the wall overlooks space and its stars. In the center of the room, steps were raised to a heightened platform with some sort of control mechanism that had a sword that was bigger than it had any right to be inserted into it. Lightning poured from the sword and mechanism. Of course, that sword had nothing on the man who stood behind it. He was tall, with black skin and golden eyes that seemed to see much more than what was in front of him. He wore full-body golden armor with a helmet whose sides curved upward in U-shape. Like many in Asgard, including his uncle, he had a short-trimmed beard on his face with black hair. Unbothered by the lightning or the weight the sword must possess, the man, Heimdall, the one who can see and hear nearly all in the 9 realms, removed the sword from its mechanism, the lightning abruptly disappearing as he did so. He places the tip of the sword on the ground, grasping the hilt with both hands before looking down at his visitor with a warm smile on his face. Welcome back to Asgard, Izuku. The green-haired boy couldn't help the grin that spread across his face. Heimdall. He runs forward, taking the steps 2 at a time up to the platform before crashing into the gatekeeper, hugging him from the side. To credit the man, the force of Izuku's affection doesn't move him at all physically. He has the decency to at least grunt at impact before putting one of his arms around the boy, keeping his other hand on the sword. It's always good to see you. Izuku unlatches, looking up, still with that grin on his face. It's good to see you too. Now, have you given any thought to my proposal? Heimdall hums and thinks for a moment, pretending he has no idea what Izuku is talking about, but they both know he does. Your proposal, you say? What was it? I remember. I believe you wanted the Bifrost to be your personal, what did you call it again? To be your own personal fast travel? Izuku's grin nearly turns manic. Yeah. To be able to be anywhere in the world in seconds. Do you know how much I could do with that? He could get himself to any villain attack instantly to help. Not to mention all the different hero cons around the world he could visit. He'd need new notebooks just for the potential signatures. Heimdall gives a very brief chuckle. I know enough to keep that power away from a child. I'm not a child. I'm 13. For some reason, this doesn't seem to convince Heimdall. Compelling. Even so, you know this would violate our king's law and cannot be done. Well, not with that attitude. Heimdall snorts just a bit. I have seen from my watch that your father has taught you many things. Izuku beams. But it seems you still have a long way to go in developing your silver tongue. Izuku's face falls dangerously close to a pout. I can be convincing when I want to be. Perhaps I'll come by later then? The new voice sends a jolt of excitement through Izuku. The young Asgardian looks down at the entrance of the room behind Heimdall to see his uncle Thor smiling up at him. His hair is cut short, and instead of his usual armor, he wears a thinner, dark-colored armor with gold accents on the front. A black cloak covers his shoulders and most of his front. Mjolnir hangs on his side. Izuku straight jumps off the platform and barrels into the God of Thunder. Hi, Uncle. Thor hugs his excitable nephew back before separating, keeping both of his hands on the other's shoulders. You are well, Izuku? Safe? How is Dash? Thor stops when he notices what's written on the green long-sleeved shirt the boy wears. Battle armor. The blonde man chuckles. We're going to have to get you your own armor soon, aren't we? Izuku shrugs a single shoulder. As soon as I finish designing it, yeah. And I'm fine, Uncle. Being safe. Heimdall makes some sort of sound but quickly covers it with a cough. Okay, so maybe some of Izuku's online contacts aren't exactly what you'd call law-abiding citizens, but they weren't bad people. They were useful for getting info on heroes for his notebooks. He's just using the information-gathering methods his dad taught him. Nothing wrong with that. Thor doesn't seem to notice Heimdall's cover-up. Very well. He takes his hands off Izuku's shoulders. We have a feast prepared for your arrival. Your father awaits us in the banquet hall. Thor turns to begin walking before Izuku stops him. Wait, Uncle. You see, I had such a long walk to get to where Heimdall opens the Bifrost. Can I please have a piggyback ride? Thor turns around to begin protesting, but when he does, Izuku isn't there. Instead, a small puppy looks up at Thor, giving him the most pitiful eyes. A whine escapes from the dog's mouth. Oh fine. Thor turns around and kneels. Izuku shifts back into himself, cheering. He jumps on his uncle's back before turning his head and sticking his tongue out at Heimdall. How's that for convincing? Thor stands back up, but Heimdall calls out to them. One last thing before you go. Izuku hums. Next time, when you are planning a heist of your grandfather's vault, maybe do not do so in a way that allows me to hear you. Izuku squeaks, pressing himself closer to Thor for protection. Both men chuckle before Thor waves and they walk out onto the Rainbow Bridge. The large circular building they left behind sat at the edge of a waterfall that seemed to fall to nothing, only connected to the rest of Asgard by the bridge they walked across now. The Rainbow Bridge itself appeared to be a large diamond lit up with a myriad of different colors, hence its name. Each step Thor took lit up the bridge more. And at the other end of the bridge, Asgard. The city was hard to describe in words. If one were to try, marvelous might be a word used. The buildings, all ranging in size from large to small and even some that were floating, were made of gold. The light made it as though they were to glow if hit right. Nature intertwined itself effortlessly in between the structures. And in the middle, a large castle that, despite being the same color as the other buildings, seemed to somehow glow brighter than all else. You've gotten heavier since last we've seen each other. Thor comments on their walk. Whoa, Uncle. Tell me you think I'm fat without saying it. Thor chuckles lightly. You know what I mean, cheeky boy. You've gained even more muscle since last time. I'm proud. But you are still pretty lean. Well, The muscles are pretty important to my fighting but not at the top of my priority list. Not everyone needs an 8-pack to fight. You insult me. Only an 8-pack. Izuku giggles. So what was it you were planning on stealing from father's vault? The would-be thief squirms a bit before muttering, Stormbreaker? A fine choice. Finally taking after me, are you? If I say yes, will you help me? Izuku smiles and his uncle has to turn his head to shield his eyes. I shall think on it. Thor finally says, possibly if you let me use it as well. It never sat well with me that such a great weapon was forced to sit in a vault. Izuku feels like he should be excited, but while he's not entirely sure how sincere Thor is being, how he said his answer bothers him. Why did grandfather forbid you from using it anymore anyway? It all comes back to his wishes to keep us separate from the other 9 realms. Didn't want the weapon that could teleport anyone anywhere out of his reach. Thor let an easygoing smile spread across his face. But that is a conversation for later. How is your mother? Is she safe as well? Izuku let the change in topic go for now. He can always get answers from the source later. She's good, safe. You know, just working a lot, so the usual. Thor snorts. It shouldn't surprise me that Loki would marry a woman just as stubborn as he. Uncle, I'm pretty sure your head is thicker than some rocks. And don't you forget it. Now. Thor reaches to the side and grabs Mjolnir, beginning to spin the hammer rapidly. I assume your love of flight has not changed? The hammer isn't the only thing vibrating as Izuku does all he can to contain himself. It's not working. Yes. Oh my god, yes. I love my powers, I really do, but I wish they included being able to fly. Thor looks confused. Couldn't you just shapeshift into a bird? Izuku slumps against the man. Shifting into a new animal takes a lot of work. And no matter how hard I try, I just can't seem to get a bird down. Plus, it's not the same as flying in my regular body. Well, I'm sure you'll get the transformation eventually. Now, are you ready? Izuku tightens his hold and nods rapidly. He really did love flying. The feeling is just so freeing. Thor nods once himself and throws the hammer forward, keeping his grip on it, and the two are launched toward the castle. Thunderous laughter erupts from the banquet hall as Uncle Thor slams his mug on the table, trying to keep himself from spitting out his drink. He only partially succeeds. Once he has better control, he asks, "You really did that?" Izuku looks back and forth from Thor sitting next to him to his father, wearing a lighter version of his armor with no horns, who sits across from him at the large table. Loki has his head in his hands. Again, Izuku looks back and forth between the men. I don't see what the problem is. It's like, how could that guy trash talk Hawks, and just not expect me to be under his bed when he got home? Thor's laughter begins again while Loki stares at the potato on his plate, probably wondering if it could choke him if he swallowed it. The room they were in was large. The table was a long one, with a wide assortment of food, only half of which Izuku could name off the top of his head. Around them were pillars and lit torches. Staff walked in and out of the room, refilling the drinks of the three and constantly switching food around. So, Izuku. Thor starts. You mentioned when we first entered you finally mastered a new ability since last we spoke? Izuku finishes chewing on some steak before answering. Yeah, I did. I finally figured out how to hide the presence of other objects. I apologize, but I thought you've been able to do that for a while? Oh no. I've been able to vanish things for a while, but not hide their presence. Here, let me show you. Izuku conjures a blue marble and holds it out for his uncle to see. He vanishes the marble before making it appear in his other hand. Now that Izuku thinks about it, he'd make a killing in street magic. How hadn't he thought of this before? Food for thought later. See, that's vanishing, right? Thor nods, prompting him to continue. Izuku places the marble in a groove on the table to keep it from rolling away before hiding its presence. After a few seconds, he lets it reappear, still sitting in the same place. Vanishing and conjuring let me move the items around. I can't move around an item whose presence is hidden. I see, Thor says. But would it not be better to just vanish all your items then? Most items I can vanish are relatively small while I can turn much larger items invisible. With a wave of his hand, a nearby pillar disappears to illustrate his point. Impressive, nephew. But what if the item can move on its own? Loki, can't you turn other people invisible too? Thor's brother nods, but Izuku shakes his head. No, I can't yet. People are so much harder. Izuku looks crestfallen while taking back his marble. It's hard enough to do it on myself, and I can't even do it very long. Doing another person seems impossible right now. Thor gives the boy a reassuring shoulder squeeze. Don't be so hard on yourself. You are still very young. Practically still a baby to other Asgardians. Izuku can't help the small smile on his face. For you to have mastered the abilities you did is nothing short of miraculous. Izuku turns his head to wipe away his rapidly forming tears. For all the magic he got from his dad, nothing could stop the tears he got from his mom. Thor straightens in his seat and looks at Loki. Still, it must bring you some relief that Izuku can't turn other people invisible yet, brother. You don't have to worry about him sneaking any girls into his room anytime soon. Loki chokes on his drink and Izuku buries his head into his hands, turning very red, very fast. Yunko. That's it, he was jumping off the rainbow bridge. Nobody can stop him. Thor tilts his head at the rapidly forming strawberry next to him. What's wrong, Izuku? What did I dash? Thor's eyes widen. Oh, I am so sorry, my boy, how insensitive of me. Of course, I have no problem if it's boys you wish to sneak into your room. Loki has to hold his stomach to keep his laughter in check at his son's distress while Thor pats his nephew's back. I know humanity only started accepting this part of themselves recently, but Izuku, you have my support. The oblivious god says sincerely. Thor. Loki is just barely able to get out through gasps of air. Humans accepted that centuries ago. Well, yes, but to us, that's a very small amount of time. You have to remember it's not for humans, or for those who live among them. Thor nods, looking back at Izuku, who is devising the best method to melt through the floor and fall back to earth. The blue-eyed man frowns at his nephew. Izuku? Are you going to be okay? He looks back up at Loki. He has had the talk, hasn't he? Izuku's bid for escape is cut short. Thor's grip is too much. He debates cutting his uncle's hand to get away. No, Izuku, that's too much. At least for now. Loki can't hold back his laughter this time. Please, brother, be my guest. If Izuku thought it was remotely possible to lift his head from his hands, he'd be sending his father the worst glare he could. But at the rate things were going, he may never see anything again. Thor turns in his seat to fully face Izuku and clears his throat. Izuku figures there are worse ways to go. He can't think of any right now, but he's sure they're out there. So, Izuku, you see, when a person loves another person very much, or when two or more people have had too much ale, or it happens to be a particularly boring day dash. I've had the talk. I've had the talk. I've had the talk. I've had the talk. Izuku cries, shaking his head. Oh. Thor sounds relieved. He's not the only one to feel that way. Excellent. At this point, Loki has his arm and head laying on the table. He can't breathe. A look of realization comes across Thor's face. So you are in a gaming mood, brother? Very well. Izuku. Despite what all logic and reason tell him, he looks up. Did your father ever tell you about the time he transformed into a horse and dash? Two hands slamming on the table bring the other's attention to a furious Loki on his feet. You dare? Oh, I do dare, brother. Izuku tunes out the rest to calm himself down. Some of the red had already receded, just a couple of more deep breaths and he should be good. Just gotta calm down. Not like he'd ever have anybody like that to sneak in if he could. Izuku shakes his head before the downward spiral can continue. Looking down, he sees Mjolnir sitting on the ground between him and his uncle. A glance shows the other two still arguing. Could he risk it? He had always wanted to see if he could lift the hammer, who wouldn't, but his father had always said no. He was told it was better if he never tried because once that question was answered, it could never be unanswered. Honestly, he'd rather live with the disappointment than the constant question of if he could. Biting his lip, Izuku reaches for the hammer. It feels like he's in water and has to get his hand through the currents to reach it, but he's just about there. Izuku goes to close his hand around the handle and, Izuku! The called-out boy snatches his hand back so fast he nearly falls out of his chair. He looks around to see his father eyeing him warily. Come on. Your grandfather is ready to see us now. Walking the halls of the palace wasn't anything new to Izuku. After all, it's where he spent most of his time while visiting anyway. But there was another part that stayed constant no matter how much he tried not to think about it. Do they always have to kneel? Izuku asks, referring to the staff who bent down for a moment as they walked by. It's not that he hated it, oh wait no, he hated it. We are royalty, Izuku. It's expected. Loki responds matter-of-factly. Can't say I'm the biggest fan either, Thor responds while Izuku tries not to show his relief that he's not the only one to feel that way. It's a waste of time and I feel it degrades those who serve us. But I'm surprised. I thought the Prince of Mischief would be all for the kneeling. Thor says, not bothering to hide his smirk. Izuku rolls his eyes. Well, I wanted to be the something of mischief. Being the god is taken and demigod doesn't sound right, so prince it is. Izuku takes another look around. I have to say though, aren't there usually more guards? Yes, that would be Loki's doing. Thor praises his brother. Because we have been in such an unprecedented time of peace, centuries since Asgard's army was called to arms, for years your father has been getting new laws passed. Laws that allow a great number of our military to retire, spend time with their families, and live their lives in leisure. Wow, really? Izuku asks. But wait, what happens if the army is needed? Thor laughs, ruffling Izuku's hair. He'll never admit how much he likes it when people do that. Even in its smaller stature, Asgard's army remains mighty. Even if for some reason Heimdall didn't give us advance warning, it would take a truly terrifying force to lay siege. Izuku turned to look up at his father, who simply smiled at him before saying, I just want what's best for Asgard. Any further conversation ended as the three reached a pair of massive doors. They all took a moment to gather themselves before the guards opened the doors for them. Inside was a massive room that put the banquet hall to shame. The room was multi-floored, with small sets of stairs leading to balconies. Pillars and torches lined the walls, and at the far end of the room was the throne. A large flight of stairs led to the massive royal seat. Like everything else, it too was gold. Massive wings came out of the side turning upward to form a sort of U-shape, not dissimilar to Heimdall's helmet. And on this throne sat Odin himself, king of Asgard and protector of the 9 realms. He was an old man now, with smooth white hair and a beard that matched in color. An eye patch covered his right eye. The armor he wore was similar to the one Thor currently wore. Dark-colored, with accents of brown and gold on the front. A long, red cape behind him and in his right hand, a sleek golden lance. The 3 Asgardians walked to the base of the stairs where the throne sat. In a practiced maneuver they had each done numerous times, they pressed their right fists to their left shoulders and kneeled. My king! They say in unison. Rise, my children. Slowly they all do. The All-Father continues. It always brings me great joy to see you all together. Izuku, you look well. Thank you, grandfather. Izuku loves the man, but gosh darn it if he's not intimidated by him. Yes, technically no one here is an actual god, but Odin sure feels close. He can't even look the man in the eye. Just glances from the floor. And what of Midgard? Are we still part of man's myths and legends? You are. You haven't been erased since you asked 6 months ago, grandfather. Odin smiles. No, and it seems that time has not erased your father's dry humor from you either. Izuku looks up and smiles back, feeling more relaxed. Never. Odin himself stands. If you don't mind, I would like to take a walk with my grandson, alone. Thor and Loki nod. The former heads back the way they came while the latter takes a moment. Meet me in the usual spot after. Izuku nods in confirmation and goes to walk alongside Odin to a different exit while Loki follows his brother. Odin waves off the guards that attempt to follow and they leave. Thor Odinson leans back against the doors to the throne room and takes a shaky breath. Loki puts a firm hand on his shoulder. Brother! It always brings me great relief to see Izuku's safe brother, you know this. Thor begins. I can't help, you know? Loki gives a reassuring squeeze. It just makes you think of what could have been. He had asked his brother numerous times if one of his abilities included mind reading. And despite the many reassurances he had received, it was moments like these that made him question it. Loki's hand begins to glow, an indication he was hiding them from Heimdall. It's not too late, you know. Loki resumes. You could go right now. I could help you. You know I have countless ways off Asgard that the gatekeeper doesn't know about dash. Your offer for help is always appreciated, brother, truly. But the decision was mine and I must live with it. Thor, Loki says, frustration beginning to take hold. That logic doesn't make sense here because you were not the only one affected by your choice. I know this troubles you deeply. Promise me you'll consider my offer. He used to be able to say no without much of a thought. But now, each passing year and every visit from his nephew made that harder. Finally, Thor relents. Very well, I will consider. Izuku and Odin exited the throne room and walked in what he thought was a random direction in silence for a minute before the king spoke. So, I hear you plan to relieve me of Stormbreaker. Izuku looks away, flushing in embarrassment. I know you can hear me, Heimdall. We have a saying on Earth, snitches get stitches. Odin laughs quietly. There is no need for threats, Izuku. Just on the scale of the schemes your father has concocted, it's not very high on the list. Odin laughs once more as his little prince crosses his arms and sulks. Out of the treasures in my vault, why that weapon in particular? Odin questions. Izuku tilts his head side to side for a few seconds before answering. He debates lying but decides against it. For the Bifrost. Yes, I thought so. Izuku, do you know why I locked Stormbreaker away in the first place? Izuku's not sure where this is going because he's pretty sure his grandfather knows that he knows why, but he'll go along with it. In your words, for peace. After the last great war between the 9 realms ended, you enacted laws that forbade travel between the different realms, especially for those in Asgard. Obviously, Stormbreaker offers an easy way to travel, so you took it. Mostly correct. Odin states. You must understand, Izuku, that Asgard has a very bloody history. There are still many who see us as nothing more than conquerors. By removing the fear of invasion from the other realms, they have been allowed to flourish under their own direction. Of course, the laws state we are allowed to intervene if an outside force threatens the planet as a whole, but nothing close to that has ever occurred. Odin gives a half-smile to the look on Izuku's face. You don't agree? It's not a question. Sorry, grandfather, I don't. That's quite all right. I know your father and uncle don't agree with it either. I swear, the only time those boys can agree on anything is if it's against me. It's just, how should he word this? Odin typically has a lot more patience with him than others, but still, he'd rather not push it. I just feel that your plan is good, grandfather, but only in the short term. Which is weird to say since, in this instance, the short term is in centuries. Odin nods but says nothing, allowing him to continue. The realms can't survive forever on their own. Resources on planets are finite. Eventually, they're going to have to reach out to others for help. Also, by not letting people from the different realms interact, it could cause people to foster negative feelings about the others. People on Vanaheim can assume the worst of the people on Jotunheim and vice versa. And through the centuries, more and more people will believe until one day, when the people meet again, it could lead to violence and more wars. There's more, but those are some of the reasons that stick out to me. Izuku takes a deep breath. He hadn't realized he had started mumbling. Not that it mattered to Odin since he always seems to understand him anyway. One of his favorite parts about the man. Thank you for speaking honestly with me, Izuku. But there's also another reason for the isolation I've called for. Odin says, waving his hand at 2 guards who unlock a set of doors near them. The All-Father beckons Izuku to follow down the stairs past the door. At the bottom, Odin unlocks another door himself and they end up in a dimly lit corridor. Several objects lie on stands down the hallway, and at the end of the hall, instead of a wall, sits a bright white light with numerous bars in front of it. Izuku's breath hitches. Oh my god! This is his vault. I've never seen it before. This is so cool. Izuku walks down the hall next to Odin, trying to take in everything he can. Some sort of blue glowing casket, a large golden glove, a giant crown of some sort, a white, blue, and red shield with a star in the middle, a red cloak draped over some kind of mannequin, and Stormbreaker. Odin leads him past the treasures to a normal-looking wall at the far end of the vault. Grandfather? Odin just gestures to the wall. Izuku is still confused but obliges. He puts his hand on the wall and he can't describe it. Every one of his senses is overwhelmed at once. He can't see. He can't hear. Nothing. It's like when a surge of power is too much and a light bulb goes out, except in this case, Izuku is the light bulb. He feels nothing and everything at the same time. After who knows how long, Izuku can see again. He's on his hands and knees panting. Sweat and tears drip off his face. His body burns like he just finished the hardest workout of his life multiplied by infinity. After regaining some semblance of control, which isn't saying much, he looks up to see Odin watching him. What was that? Izuku asks, barely holding back bile. Before I answer Izuku, let me ask you this. How does man think they develop their abilities? More tears stream down Izuku's face. He doesn't want to play 20 questions. He just wants to know what the hell that was and then go to sleep for a year. Odin gently lifts his grandson up from under his armpits and takes him to another side of the vault and leans his back against the wall. Izuku flinches but the wall is normal. Odin sits beside him, seemingly content on waiting. After what could be hours or minutes, Izuku feels his trembling hands start to still, and he's able to draw on deeper breaths. After a couple of more minutes, he finally answers. Honestly, we don't really know. The biggest theory is that quirks are some sort of disease that was transferred from rats to humans, but there's no actual evidence for it. The other theory is the quirk singularity theory, but that has even less evidence somehow. Fascinating. Odin laments. And I will never quite get over the word humanity chose, quirks, such a silly word. Odin gets lost in thought for a few moments. Let me tell you my theory. Izuku turns a bit to give his full attention. Centuries ago, there existed, let's call them items. These items contained power that had been around since the dawn of the universe itself. Each item possessed an immense and unique ability. One of them could grant a vast array of wishes, even those against the laws of nature itself. On its own, it was powerful indeed, but still limited in its reach and scale. However, when combined with another one of the items, it could easily affect change on, say, a global scale. Put all the items together, and the scale is universal. Izuku tries to digest everything he's listening to. His mind is running so fast that for once, his mouth can't keep up to mumble. He finally settles on, so you're saying this item, with the help of the others, is what gave people their quirks? I was not there to witness it myself, but I believe most likely yes. Izuku swallows, yeah, that's a lot. Until today, he still saw the threshold of power in people like All Might or his Uncle Thor, but this was something on a completely different scale. These items, are they still? No. We were able to convince an ancient race known as Celestials that the power these items contained could no longer be allowed to exist. So they were taken and destroyed. Izuku can't even get his sign of relief out before Odin says, well, most of them. Izuku goes cold. The connection is obvious. He stares at the wall he was previously at. Odin follows his gaze. Yes, Izuku. One could not be destroyed. So I volunteered to keep it hidden. Its prison is made of its own power, so only another item would be capable of breaking through. And since the other items were destroyed, then it should never see the light of day again. But I still rather not take chances. This isolationism makes the chances of anyone learning of the item as minimal as can be. And so hopefully it can stay locked away forever. Izuku, you merely touched the wall that surrounds the prison the item is locked in. That was not even a taste of the devastation it could bring. Izuku can only nod. He definitely should have let his body recover more before learning all of that. Right now, he can't even form proper thoughts on the situation. Well, that's wrong actually. He can form one thought. And that's to get as far away from this vault as possible. Izuku stumbles onto the balcony near the top of the palace. Still reeling from the talk with Odin, Loki stands by the railing, hands behind his back as usual, watching the setting sun. He turns but freezes when he sees the state of his son. Loki rushes over and helps Izuku to the railing so he can lean on it for support. "Izuku, what's wrong?" The boy says nothing, opting to lean against his dad instead, no longer holding back his tears. Every time he closes his eyes, he feels the phantom touch of the item. How small and insignificant it made him feel. He felt powerless and for once, not in control. And he knew nothing he did would ever be able to tame whatever it was. Loki sighs, running his fingers through Izuku's hair while he leans into his side. "Father told you what was in the vault, didn't he?" he asks softly. Izuku stiffens before relaxing again and nodding. Loki takes a deep breath. "Don't worry, your uncle and I are aware. As well as a few select others. You can always talk to us about it." Another nod. They stand in mostly comfortable silence for a while before the older trickster begins anew. "Izuku, did I ever tell you why, when announcing myself, I declare that I am burdened with glorious purpose?" Izuku's mind is finally taken off the item for a moment. Had he thought about it? He hadn't. In his head, it was just something his father always said, but he never really put too much thought into the words themselves. Izuku shakes his head. "It's because, for the longest time, I didn't know what my purpose was." Izuku is taken so off guard by the statement that his head whips up to look at Loki before he can think. In his father's green eyes, he sees more emotion than he thinks he's ever seen. "I spent a long time just going from goal to goal. Purpose to purpose. Each time I thought, this is it. This time I truly found what I was meant to do. Only to be left disappointed and disheartened after each attempt. You know, part of me is ashamed to admit I was a bit envious of you, Izuku." "Of me?" Izuku's voice is hoarse. Loki hums. "From the moment you could comprehend the world around you, you knew what you wanted to be. What your purpose was. To be a hero. I was envious, but also proud that you had figured out what had taken me so many years too. So what is your purpose, Dad?" Loki gives a sad smile. "That is something that'll have to wait for the right time." "I don't understand?" "I know, son. But you will in time. All you need to know is that change is coming." "A good change?" Izuku leans further into his father. "Yes, Izuku. A good change is coming. Because no matter how people attempt to stall or run from it, change always comes." Loki watches the last of the sun's rays disappear over the horizon. It is inevitable. Shodaizawa was having a good day. Well, good is a strong word. He was having a somewhat tolerable day. He had gotten a full 3 hours of sleep during the day. His favorite cat cafe had a freshly brewed pot of coffee just finished when he walked in during the evening. Even the cats seemed extra affectionate today. Although he could have done without Purrizent Mike meowing in his ear constantly, but it's not like that was much different from the man himself. Patrol had started off fine as well that night. A couple of muggings, a bar fight, and a drag deal. Nothing he couldn't deal with or had to strain his eyes too badly for. No, it wasn't until he was stopping a trigger deal in some alley that it all went wrong. 4 assailants. 2 were buying and the other 2 were selling. As soon as he confirmed the money and trigger, he jumped down. He had the 2 sellers down almost immediately, landing on one and putting the other down with a well-placed elbow to the face. Predictably, the other 2 froze and freaked out when their quirks wouldn't come to them. In the few seconds he took to descend on them was when he noticed a 5th assailant. Apparently, one of the parties had someone waiting in the wings just in case things went bad. The man had some sort of chameleon mutation and quirk that had allowed him to blend into his surroundings. That seemed to be all he was good for though, because he ran once he registered Shota was there. The criminal rounded the corner as Eraserhead was finishing with the men in the alley and was about to go after him when he heard a scream and a thud from the street. He tore out of the alley, quirk activated and capture weapon ready when he met what would ultimately ruin his night. A child stood on the sidewalk, beaming at him so brightly Shota was glad he was wearing his goggles. The criminal lays on the ground in front of him, unconscious. Eraserhead. The kid screams before pulling a notebook out from somewhere. "Can I have your autograph?" He takes note of their surroundings to make sure they aren't in any danger before looking the kid up and down, checking for injuries. Once he's satisfied, he answers, "What happened?" He gestured to the unconscious man. "Did you do this?" The kid pulls the notebook back and looks down. Him? No, he tripped. I think I must have scared him when he was running from you? Because he saw me and tripped." Shota raises an unimpressed eyebrow. "He tripped." The kid nods rapidly, his wild green hair flopping everywhere with his head movements. "Yeah. Tripped." Shota glances back down. "So." His headache is making itself known. "He saw you. Tripped. And that caused the cut on his thigh, and his head to hit the wall hard enough to cause cracks in it." "Wow. You're as good as they say." Shota takes a long, very long breath through his nose before exhaling. He hears in his earpiece that police and medical are minutes away. He wraps the villain in his scarf and picks him up to take him back into the alley. "Go home, kid. He could still salvage the night. And don't let me catch you out here again." The kid is clearly a fan. Hopefully, his word will be enough to get the kid to stop whatever it is he was planning. The underground hero carries the last trigger dealer into the alley and sets him by the others. Relieved the kid didn't follow, Shota applies basic first aid to the man's head and checks the injuries on the others before the ambulance and police arrive. He gives a quick statement before using his capture weapon to rappel himself back to the top of the building to watch the police finish up and leave. Shota sighs, crouching down and slipping a jelly packet out of his pocket to sip on. He watches the city in thought. Well, that kid was a minor setback, but overall, not the worst day. He's not sure how a 10, 11-year-old kid found him. Maybe quirk related? Well, it's done now, so he can focus on his new class he's got to teach in 2 days. And so about that autograph? Shota does not jump. That would imply he was scared or gotten scared, which he didn't. What he is, however, is confused. He turns his head to see the kid, the same kid from before, practically vibrating with excitement next to him. Notebook held out again. Shota narrows his eyes. No one had been able to sneak up on him in years. It'd be impressive in almost any other situation. "What did I just tell you, kid?" He drawls. "Not to let you catch me out here again." The kid actually jumps up and down a little while answering. "Yeah, his night was ruined. Right, so what are you still doing here?" Shota has been told his lack of patience is easily identifiable in his voice. He's hoping the kid gets it. Actually, the kid starts. The headache pounds harder. "You never said I had to leave. You said I just had to make sure you didn't catch me." Shota looks over the edge of the building. "No, this fall wouldn't be enough to kill him." "Shame. Wrong. The first thing I told you to do is go home. Now go, before I drag you to the nearest police station." "But Eraser." The kid whines. Whining. Home is such a subjective term. It can mean any number of places. Instead of answering, Shota whips his scarf at the kid. The police should let him off with a warning and he'll learn his lesson. Wrapping the scarf around his mouth will just be a bonus. But in a feat the veteran hero hasn't seen done by many, the kid moves, dodging the scarf, and standing up straight up again, holding out the notebook. "You dodged," Shota states, standing up and rolling his scarf back up around his neck. He pretends not to feel his knees popping as he does so. Somehow, the kid's smile grows. "Well, I did say I wouldn't let you catch me." Shota wants to be more upset than he is. "I don't give autographs. So just head back to wherever you live." This burgeoning problem child has the audacity to pout. Thank God Namuri wasn't here. She'd be putty in his hands. "But it took so long to find you." Another sigh. A rapidly common occurrence tonight. At least, more than usual. "Do you have a pen?" A happy gasp, and the kid looks at his pocket, and when he does, it was Shota's turn to move. He gets right in front of the kid before he even has a chance to look up, and by the time he does, he's wrapped up with his feet off the ground. Your reflexes are well beyond your age. But never take your eyes off a potential enemy. While Eraserhead had been expecting some form of disappointment or begging, instead, the almost confirmed problem child was somehow even happier. "Oh my God, I'm wrapped up in the Eraserhead's capture weapon." This is one of the greatest days of my life. Wow, it's so light but strong. Carbon fiber, right? I heard there's some metal woven into the material to make it very hard to cut. Is that true? Although, I'm sure the knife you have hidden on you can probably cut it right. How does he know about that? Would it be too much to ask you to take a picture of me like this? No. Can we find someone else to take a picture of me like this with you? Yeah, and can you have that exact scowl on your face that you have now? Please. The gremlin descends into a mumble storm as Shota carefully navigates their way back down to the sidewalk. He's not sure if the kid takes a breath in that time, but the pro hero is making sure the scarf isn't too tight, so it's probably fine. Enough, Shota says once they're back on the ground. It's simple, but enough to break the kid out of whatever the hell that was. I gave you the chance to leave, kid. Now if you behave on the way to the station, they'll probably let you off light, but only if you behave. Got it? Thankfully, mercifully, he gets a nod and they begin their walk. Well, Shota's walking while the kid just sort of dangles. It's peaceful. So what do I have to do to get that autograph? It was peaceful. Was becoming an important word tonight. Stay out of trouble and next time, do what I, or any pro hero, tell you to do. Then I'll get it? No. The human-sized broccoli groans. Come on, Eraserhead. There's gotta be some way. What if I can get out of this? Can I get it then? I don't know what your quirk is. It would be illogical to take that bet. I can create illusions. And anyway, you can just keep your quirk on me until we get there. I couldn't see when you'd blink. Also, does your quirk work through any glass, or are your goggles made from something special? Your scarf and hair float when you use your quirk, obviously to move anything blocking your sight, so does that mean it has some sort of minor anti-gravity quirk built into it? That would be such a cool quirk on its own. But your stuff floating is a big tell. Couldn't you cut your hair and wear your scarf somewhere else so the villains aren't tipped off? How much weight can your quirk side effect move? Like, how about a tennis ball or something? Would that float around your face? What about red-colored contacts? So nobody could tell when your quirk is activated with or without the goggles. What about dash? A small shake breaks the kid's concentration. It's doing nothing for Shota's full-blown migraine. If I give you an autograph, will you shut up and head home? Your actual home and stay there? Yes. Now he's practically dancing in the weapon. Wonderful. Oh yes, yes, yes. I promise. Thank you. Are those tears? Whatever. Shota looks up and down the street to make sure they're alone when he feels the weight the capture weapon is holding disappear. He turns around, lowering himself into a fighting stance only to see, again, the kid holding out his notebook and pen with the biggest smile on his face. I thought you said your quirk was illusion creation. I said I could create illusions. I never said it was my quirk. Yeah. Shota needs to end this. He can feel his grip on reality slipping. He takes the notebook from the kid and sees it. God damn it. A good drawing of himself on one page and words written on the other page. At least he assumes they're words. What language is this? Shota asks, squinting. The kid picks at his fingernails nervously. It's a code. I like to analyze heroes, but I don't want just anyone to be able to read my notes. So I code everything. Potential. Shota's traitorous brain provides. But if even half the questions he could make out from the kid were accurate, maybe it wasn't that far off. He signs his name under the picture and hands it back. The kid's hands tremble as he takes the book back. Thank you. Thank you so much. He sniffles and oh God, here come the tears again. Shota waves him off, rubbing his irritated eyes. Yeah, I could. Just make sure dash. He opens his eyes and the kid is gone. What was he saying before? His grip on reality was slipping? That kid was real, right? He doesn't even know if he's hopeful about that or not. But he does know one thing. He needs more coffee. Mirai Sasaki dodges back just as his intern, Mirio Togata, shoots up from the ground. The two take a moment to steady themselves before Mirio charges forward. Mirai takes another step back, pretending to lose his footing, and throws two of his super-density stamp seals in panic. Mirio activates his permeation, letting the seals pass through him. I got you now, sir. He yells, aiming a fist at his mentor's face. Tunnel vision, Mirai says simply. Mirio has just enough time for his face to form one of confusion before Mirai's knee catches him in the gut. The UA student falls to his knees, wheezing. You continue to improve. Mirai continues while he straightens his suit and glasses. However, when you feel victory is assured, you gain tunnel vision in regards to your opponent. You don't consider what ways your enemy can counter you, or how they may be tricking you. He holds his hand out and Mirio takes it, pulling himself up and smiling. I'll be sure to work on it through this year, sir. Mirio proudly declares, pumping his fist in the air. Besides, I wouldn't want to be known for tunneling during a fight, then people might say I'm boring. Mirai stares at his student for a few seconds before snorting. Take the rest of the day off. Make sure to turn your costume in before you leave for any last-minute alterations. Oh, I'm good to go again if you want. No, you start classes tomorrow and should be well rested. You did good work. I look forward to your sports festival this year. Mirio's bright smile returns full force before he bows. Thank you, sir. The almost UA second-year wave as he leaves. Mirai allows himself a small smile before returning to his office. Slumping in his seat, All Might's former sidekick lets out a relieved sigh. It was almost time. He would use this year to continue to develop Mirio. The work studies after the boy obtained his provisional license would be a massive help. And at the end, Mirio will be more than ready for one for all. Toshinori will pass on the quirk. The country will have its new symbol of peace for decades to come, and his old friend can finally retire and be safe. Still, it helps to be prepared. Mirai picks up his phone and dials a number he hadn't in a long time. Unsurprisingly, it doesn't take long for him to get an answer. Yeah. Torino, it's Mirai. Heh, should have figured you'd have the guts to call before the oath. What do you want? I want you to meet my chosen successor to All Might. And I want you to help me convince Toshinori to meet him as well. The sooner the better. Typically, the user picks their successor. We both know that Toshinori will wait until the last possible moment to even think about finding a successor. And by then it will be too late. Your help with convincing him and in training the boy would be appreciated. Yeah, I don't know, Mirai. I just got a new microwave and the trains are so crowded these days, demon young people don't even offer their seats to us old folk anymore. Mirai pinches the bridge of his nose in exasperation. And the old man wonders why they don't call anymore. I'll send a company car to pick you up and you can have as much taiyaki as you can eat. I'll see you tomorrow. The line goes dead. Mission accomplished, he supposes. All the pieces are in place. Sir Night Eye thinks back to last year's sports festival. To that embarrassed Mirio who lost his clothes on live television. He knows many wrote him off. But he was not one of many. Mirai knew then he had found him. Despite his poor performance at the festival, his future in turn never stopped smiling. With that smile and positive attitude, Mirai knew there was no other choice. He offered the boy an internship because of it. He would be the 9th user of One for All. Sure, if for some reason Mirio did not receive the quirk, he couldn't fathom why, then yes, he would still make an excellent hero. Tomorrow will be an interesting day. Hopefully, he can even convince Toshinori to come so he and Mirio can start to get to know each other. No, it was all gonna work. All that would be left is for Mirio to accept. Why bother? I know you all want to go to the hero track. Katsuki Bakugo scoffed as all the extras in the room cheered and showed off their worthless quirks. First day of his last year in middle school and he couldn't be more ready to leave. Stupid FANG extras. Most of their quirks couldn't be used for heroics, and the few that maybe could have worked, aren't going to now. They hadn't put any work into it. Unlike him. He had been training his butt off since he could remember. Keeping his body in peak condition, studying to keep his mind sharp, and learning to use his quirk in different ways. Deku had actually been useful for quirk training when they were younger. He could really see how much damage different size explosions did to a person, at least before the fucker started to be able to pull his little disappearing act. FING coward. Katsuki side-eyed the nerd in the back corner of the room. There he was, just scribbling away in one of his stalker books. Whatever. At least he had the good sense not to pretend he had a chance like the rest of these losers. Oh good, Sensei is finally starting to get back whatever little control he has over the class. Time to set the record straight. He propped his feet on the desk. Hey teach. The class went silent. But they should hang off every word of the future number one. Don't lump me in with the rest of these extras. I'm the real deal, but they'll all be lucky to get into the Gen Ed courses of any hero school. He laughs as the class protests before Sensei mentions he's trying for UA. That shuts them all up. Finally, I'll be doing more than trying out. Once they see me, UA is gonna be begging me to join their hero course. The blonde steps up on top of his desk. I've aced every mock test. I have the perfect quirk. I'm the only one here with any chance to get in. And after, I'm gonna be richer and more popular than even All Might. The class stares at him in awe. But they should get used to looking up at him, and you know what? He can't say he minds looking down at them. That's right. All of them, especially Deku, are just stones. No, not even stones. They're pebbles on his path to glory. And nothing's gonna... Oh yeah, Midoriya, don't you want to go to UA too? Katsuki's thoughts come to a screeching halt. What? He wouldn't seriously even think about applying to UA, right? He knows Katsuki's going, and he has to be the only one from this shitty school to make it in. Why is Deku trying to ruin his perfect backstory? Does he think he's that much better than him? He drills his eyes into Deku, who's leaning his face into his hand, looking resigned to what's about to happen. Katsuki's thoughts can't go any further before the class breaks out into laughter. Deku? Seriously? Nothing you make is real, how is that gonna help? Card tricks can't beat villains, Deku. Hey, maybe he could pull Miruko from a hat and she can beat the villains for him. The class laughs more while Deku just sighs, tapping his pencil against his notebook. Oh, Katsuki's body can finally move. He rushes forward and slams his hand on Deku's desk, causing a small explosion. The shitty nerd doesn't move for a second before tilting his head up but leaving it in his hand. Deku gives him a small, nauseating smile. Hey Kaken. Here to wish me luck. You know, there's a small, very small part of Katsuki that wants Deku to get into the hero course. So he can have permission to kick his butt every day and explode that smirk right off his face. But the nerd not getting anywhere near UA is still preferred. For now, he just settles on growling. Listen up, Det. You're just some wannabe birthday clown who'll run from the first villain he sees. You really think they'd let someone like you in when they could have me? I'm sorry, Kaken, but are you confused? What did you just ask, Dash? Are you confused? Because you know UA doesn't have to choose between us, right? We don't have to compete against each other in that way. It's not like they can only accept one kid from each middle school, we can both go. I thought you said you'd been studying? Deku throws him an even wider smile. He's a dead man. With a roar, Katsuki throws his fist back, ready to swing, but before he could, that's enough, Bakugo. Return to your seat. Sensei calls out. Thankfully, his training had awarded him with plenty of willpower, since it was taking every last of it right now to hold back. He couldn't risk anything appearing on his record to hurt his chances at UA. So he'll play nice for now. At least while Sensei is here. The explosion quirk user stomps back to his desk and let the rest of the day pass him by. Not soon enough, the day ends. Katsuki waits for the rest of the extras and Sensei to leave before storming back to Deku's desk. There he was, smiling at some stupid sheet on his phone while writing in his notebook. Oi, Det, we weren't done. Katsuki goes to snatch the dweeb's notebook, only for his hand to go through an illusion of said book. Deku stands up, his bag disappearing in a green light, and this motherfucker has the ball to sigh at him. Your whole thing is being loud, Kaken. I knew you were coming. Did you think I'd just let you take my book? Katsuki flings the desk in between them out of the way and across the room. Some extra comes up behind him. Oh, it's Longfingers. Hey Bakugo, man. Maybe we should. Shut the F up. He glares back at Deku, but he wasn't even looking at him. The idiot was staring at where his desk was. Huh, maybe next time I should create a decoy of the desk too? But how far would Kaken be willing to go in property damage? Should I create decoys of everyone's desks? Yeah, I know they never respected mine, but being a hero is about being the bigger person, No, the windows should be fine. Kaken wouldn't let that big of an explosion inside the school. No. I'm not willing to see how far I'd have to push him to do it. What the dash? Deku and his stupid Ifunji mumble storms that no one understands. No wonder he didn't have any friends. Deku! What? Sorry, Kaken. He pointedly ignores the apologetic smile Deku gives him. What were we talking about? He doesn't remember. Katsuki is the future #1. Deku should be honored just to talk to him. All you're good at is running away, Deku. You'll die at the entrance exams and I'm gonna prove it. Katsuki's hand starts to heat up and smoke. He went to put his hand on Deku's shoulder. Now run away and leave your little clone. Before his hand could touch him, Katsuki felt something press against his wrist. His eyes widen at the sight of a knife that was not there before. How's that for running away? Katsuki clenches his fist harder, making a sound similar to a rabid dog. Don't worry, Kaken. You'll get the fight you want when I get into UA. Is that a threat? Katsuki spat. It's a promise. Red eyes met green for a few tense seconds before Katsuki pulled his hand away. The knife was already gone. He scoffs, stuffing his hands into his pockets before making his way to the door. He would not let that nerd get the last word. Time to put him in his place once and for all. Katsuki stops at the door. You know, there is a way you could be a hero. He pauses. Just pray that you'll be born with a better quirk in your next life, and take a swan dive off the roof of the building. Deku actually takes a step back, his face falling. He gets it. Katsuki leaves without another word. He did it. The nerd seemed to finally understand. No way he applies to UA now. He should feel satisfied with his victory. So why didn't he? Why would he say that? Izuku Midori-no shakes his head while walking home. Why would Kaken go that far? Was this his fault? Had he pushed his old friend too far? He knew he could be annoying at even the best times, but still, did he really want him to die? Izuku's way home takes him through a tunnel. No, he couldn't have actually wanted him to jump off a building. Sure, he and Kaken hadn't exactly gotten along for years, but this was different. Did he not want him to go to UA that bad? But he wasn't that irritating, right? It couldn't be that Kaken actually saw him as a threat, right? Oh no. That'd be ridiculous. So what? Get back here. Izuku's train of thought is derailed by a shout from outside the tunnel. The teen looks up to see someone small running at him from the other end. A child, he realizes. A girl. She stops in front of him, and for the second time that day, Izuku's green eyes meet another person's red. But while Kaken's were full of anger, hers show nothing but fear. Izuku raises his hands, trying to show her that he means no harm. Giving his best smile, he says, "Are you Dash?" "Hey!" The girl squeals in terror, flinging herself onto him, clinging tightly. She's trembling. Izuku looks up to see what he assumes is a man from his build, standing at the end of the tunnel. Most of his body is covered by a black cloak, and he wears some sort of plague doctor mask over his face. Well, if that doesn't scream bad guy. Thanks for finding my boss, kid. The man says. We'll be taking her back now. Yeah, give her to one of us and you're free to go, kid. The voice comes from behind him. Izuku turns his head to see another man, dressed the same way as the first, blocking the other end of the tunnel. The man behind him looks down. Oh shit, look at his shoes. He's a quirkless. The man laughs a little. You can understand us, right? The first man laughs too. Oh right. I heard most of them can't even talk. Good point. Izuku gently places his hands around the girl. I can understand you. Fine. Izuku says, his voice low. Whatever you say. The first man replies, still laughing a little. Well, the deal still stands. Give her up and you can leave. Though I almost feel bad for letting you go, a worthless life sounds like hell to me. Izuku's mind quickly flashed through his early years, back before he could use any of his powers. How just him suggesting he could be a hero while everyone thought he was quirkless got him beaten up, got him secluded, got him burned. He wouldn't trade his powers for anything, but dang it, he knows he could have been a hero without them. Sure, no one believed in him and it had never been done before, But he could have. At least he's pretty sure. Izuku opens his mouth to respond, but a soft, broken voice stops him. Please. Izuku looks down. The girl is somehow holding him even tighter. Please, don't go. Izuku takes a second to get a good look at her. Raggedy clothes. Bluish, off-white hair. A small horn on her forehead. And, oh God, bandages on her arms and legs. She couldn't be older than 5. Determination courses through his body as Izuku takes a breath. I'm not going anywhere. She says to her. I promise. A nearby manhole cover began to stir. Tashinori Yagi really was pathetic, wasn't he? Here he was, the symbol of peace, Japan's hope as the #1 hero, and he had to go ahead and lose a villain in the sewers. Sure, if he had just lost the villain, it wouldn't be so bad. In his powered-up state, he could probably catch back up in less than 30 seconds, give or take. No, the problem was he had run out of time. The day had been a bit strange, he'll admit. It seemed like everyone needed help today. Not that he's complaining. He would never. He lives to help those in need. But today, the moment he finished getting a cat out of a tree, or helping someone move their furniture, another person was calling out to him. And while he was always happy to help, it came at the detriment of his 3-hour time limit. When he thought he finally had a moment, he deflated and took a trip to the grocery store, only for this villain to rob a bank. He had hoped to catch up to the mud? Slime? To the villain quickly and secure him, but it was not to be. He had gotten away, and that left Tashinori to where he was now. Running around the sewers in his emancipated form like a fool, trying to get Tsukachi on the phone. What a great hero you are. He thinks to himself while coughing blood into his hand. Tashinori took another deep breath and tried to call on One for All again. If he could just get something, anything, he knows he could end this quickly. He willed his quirk to work, and nothing again. What a disgrace. The old hero gripped his grocery bag tighter and pushed himself to keep running. His lungs were burning, the pain from his injury was white hot, and his mouth filled with more and more blood, but he kept going. He would see this through to the end. He just had to hope no one got hurt before he did. Izuku would be the first to admit that this situation wasn't exactly ideal. We ain't got all day, kid. It could be better. The gears in Izuku's head spun. The easiest solution would be to turn the girl invisible and get them both out of there, but slight problem. He hadn't learned how to do that yet. So that's out. He could change her appearance and make her look completely different, but that wouldn't help either. They'd see it, and if not, anyone traveling with him would obviously be her. Then there were his opponents themselves. He couldn't get a read on what their quirks were. No physical part of their bodies was visible to analyze. He'd like to say they didn't have ranged quirks, or else they would have used them, but at the same time, they may not want to hurt the girl. He has multiple daggers and knives physically on him now, plus he could conjure more if he needed, but they could be risky too because these villains, they're hurting this girl, so villains, they could have skin or be wearing armor that's knife-proof. Could KageNekem have been right? Were his powers only good for tricks? Was he really useful? Stop. You're letting what he said get to you. Relax. Breathe. You're the Prince of Mischief. Act like it. No situation is out of your control. They don't have you trapped. You have them. All right. Save the girl now. Deal with what KageNekem said later. And possibly stab him for it. Oh wait. Definitely stab him. But like a light stab. Izuku only takes seconds to process all those thoughts before feeling for his knives under his sleeves, getting ready to test how knife-proof the villains were, before the manhole cover close to him began to shake violently. Oh, what fresh hell was this? The horned girl buries her face against him as some green liquid substance came out through the holes in the cover. Sludge, if he had to guess. His only solace is the 2 men yelling in surprise, meaning whatever this was, wasn't with them. The sludge twisted around for a second before forming what looked like arms and a face, complete with eyes and mouth. Izuku's hopes, albeit they were very slim, of the newcomer helping them were dashed when the sludge man looked down at him. His face was the one of a predator, and it looked like he had found his prey. Well, it looks like I got my choice of skin suit today. The sludge man says in a distorted voice. Izuku doesn't know if there is a way to use skin suit in a good context, but this was not it. Let's see, the sludge around him is liquid, so most likely no pain receptors. He doesn't know about the teeth, but those eyes make nice, big targets. Hey, freak. The sludge villain turns to look at the man calling him from the tunnel's entrance. Do whatever you want with the boy, but the girl is ours. Who the hell do you think you are? He calls back. This is Izuku's chance. The girl gives a small squeal as he picks her up, putting his left arm under her while she wraps her own arms around his neck. Izuku can't make her invisible, but he can make more. He creates 10 decoys of himself around the sludge villain, but only 5 of them look like him. At the same time, he turns 5 of the decoys into copies of the girl. When the sludge villain looks back, there are 6 total pairs of kids, each looking the exact same as the originals. What the F is this? The villain roars, his eyes desperately scanning over them. Watch your mouth. All 6 Izuku say together before laughing and taking off in different directions. 3 pairs toward the exit of the tunnel and the other 3 toward the entrance. I don't have time for this. The sludge villain extends both of his arms and swipes at both groups of retreating kids. Several dodge, but he's still able to hit a pair of decoys on each side. One of the pairs running toward the entrance trips and falls. Found you. He lunges in their direction. The real Izuku smirks as he runs toward the exit. That'll buy a little time. Now he adjusts his free arm and conjures 2 knives before throwing them at the last villain blocking their exit. He has his clone do the same, so the goon thinks 4 knives are flying toward him, each one aimed at one of his legs or shoulders. Sheet. The man creates what looks like mini shields in his hands, each the size of a palm, and goes to block 2 of the knives. He guesses right on the one aimed for his shoulder. He does not on the legs. The knife skewers him in the right leg and he shrieks in pain, hunching over and putting both of his hands on either side of the injured leg. Pardon me. Izuku jumps and drives his heel into the man's chest, using his momentum to take him to the ground before continuing his run. The sun had never looked so good. His victory is short-lived before Izuku's instincts go wild. He hugs his passenger with both hands and sends them rolling on the ground just in time for a sludge appendage to go sailing above them. The teen looks up just in time to see the sludge villain barreling down on them. You're mine. Izuku doesn't even think. His arm moves in a slashing motion, the dagger being conjured mid-swing. His aim is true. Izuku slashes the villain across the eye, causing him to reel back in pain. Unfortunately, he backs up right into the path Izuku was running in. Even being outside the tunnel, the path they're on is a narrow one, with high walls lining the sides. The half-Asgardian has no choice but to try to turn around, but when he does, his down villain is ripping the knife out of his leg and getting back on his feet. His partner running up to his side, pulling him the rest of the way up. You're gonna want to hang on, Izuku whispers to the girl, moving her to his back. She doesn't have to be told twice and wraps her legs around his back and her arms around his neck. It's a little too tight, but he won't complain. Good try, kid. But we'll be taking Eri back now. The uninjured cloaked villain tells him. Eri, huh? Like hell you will. Oh good, Mr. Sludge has recovered. I still need a suit to hide in before he gets here. Izuku turns his back to one of the walls so he can keep an eye on both sets of villains. We told you. We just want the girl. You can have the other one. The sludge villain growls. So I get the boy and you get the girl? Fine, whatever. Guys? The villains all turn to look at Izuku. As wanted as all of this is making me feel, you have a slight problem. He lifts his hand and in a flash of green light, Izuku is gone. In his place, now stand a dozen terrified-looking girls. Which one? Is Eri? 3 different girls say. I have never wanted to kill a kid more than I have today, the injured villain grits out. Doesn't matter. The sludge villain calls out. I'll just attack them all. You can't. We need the girl. The uninjured villain forms a gun with his hand and shoots a bullet of compressed air in front of the advancing sludge villain. Unknown to any of them, a new person, panting at the mouth of the tunnel, begins to watch. He turns his murderous glare from the dozen girls to the mask-wearing villains. I don't give a dash. You're running out of time. One of the Aries says. He'll be here before you know it. says another. And they keep getting in your way. The sludge villain bellows in frustration. I'm done with this. I'm getting a skin suit one way or another. He jumps at the other two villains, both of them barely jumping out of the way in time. The goon with the injured leg stays on the ground, clutching his leg in pain. The sludge villain takes advantage, descending upon the man, ripping his mask off, and forcing his way down his throat. The dozen Aries take advantage. One girl grabs another and they all run back toward the tunnel. I don't think so. The villain not currently being possessed by the sludge from hell starts shooting air bullets at the Aries, knowing it wouldn't kill her. Several decoys are taken out before Izuku ends the illusion, throwing 2 more knives at the villain that he ultimately shoots out of the air. He points 2 finger guns at the pair while Eri hides behind Izuku. The villain tries to fire several shots at them but they're blocked by a pair of daggers. The two take a moment to stare each other down. You must be so relieved, kid. To have gotten a quirk. Means when I kill you, someone might actually care. The man blasts a shot of compressed air from his foot, launching himself at the kids. He switches from a gun to an air sword in his dominant hand and brings it down onto Izuku's head. He crosses his daggers in front of him, blocking the attack. The villain aims the air gun in his left hand at the boy's gut. Before he can fire, Izuku twists, using the air sword caught in his daggers to drag the man with him, while at the same, using his leg to keep Eri out of the way. Izuku pushes the man off of him and throws another knife before the twist is done, feeling satisfied when it pierces the man's gun hand. You little sheet. Izuku can't help the smile on his face. And you want to know the best part? I just did all of that without any powers. The man snarls, raising his air sword, but another knife stabs that hand too. As the man stumbles, Izuku picks Eri back up, holding her close. I didn't even need them to beat you. Because guess what? Quirk or no quirk, nothing was going to stop me from saving Eri. A very loud stomp comes from behind Izuku. Very well said, young man. Izuku turns and was pretty sure if it wasn't for the adrenaline pumping through him, he would have fainted right there. You've done well. But let a pro handle it from here. I wasn't ready. The sludge villain yells, abandoning his prey and lunging in a desperate attack. Texas, All Might grabs Izuku and Eri with his other hand, positioning them behind him. Smash! All Might punches right as the sludge villain attacks, creating a torrent of wind. Izuku holds Eri close to him while the wind roars around them. Dimenyuo. The sludge villain is blown apart by the mighty punch, the other two villains being blasted away with him. Once the wind dies down, sound of sirens could be heard approaching. Izuku loosens his grip on the red-eyed girl a little. Are you okay, Eri? She nods. Yes. Thank you, sir. Izuku makes a face. Oh, please don't call me that. My name's Midoriya. Midori me Midoriri dash. Izuku smiles. How about you just call me Mido? The girl answers by burying her face into his chest again. So, did this all go according to plan? Loki smirks from his spot on top of the building, watching the scene below them. Oh yes. His companion rubs his chin with his wrinkled fingers. You helped the girl escape her captors so your son could rescue her? Correct. And this is part of your grand plan for Terra? You were the one who demanded an update. Loki knows his smirk is infuriating the other, so he keeps it up. Then answer me this. Why spend so much time delaying the buffoon beforehand, ensuring his power would run out? He would have saved the girl much quicker. It needed to be Izuku who rescued the girl. So they would grow attached. The alien hums a bit before answering. I still fail to see the point of this. The point is the same as it has always been. Green eyes zone in on Izuku, holding the girl close to him while talking excitedly with the hero. Control. Ah yes, they're in room, just head through those doors and take the elevator at the end of the hall. It'll be the first one on your left. Naomasa Tsukachi tips his hat at the receptionist and makes his way toward the double doors he was directed towards. Tsukachi. The police detective turns at the sound of his name to see Shota Aizawa walking to him. He's with me, Naomasa tells the receptionist, who nods and buzzes the door for the two men. They walk and step down the hallway. Aizawa waits for the doors to close behind them before staring. So, what was so urgent you couldn't give me any details over the phone? Kidnapping case. We got a little girl. Married. Age is between 4 to 5. No birth certificate and no missing report cases match her. Naomasa lists off. Strange. But not as out of the ordinary as you implied over the phone. She was being walked when she managed to get away from her guard, and then rescued by a 14-year-old. From what I've been told, he handled himself well. Who told you that? Oh my. He arrived at the end and finished the villains off. Aizawa sighs. Of course. He's still here. Naomasa stops to press the button for the elevator. No. He had other matters to attend to. He gave his statement and left. His secretary is here in his place. He looks over at Aizawa, who gives him a nod. He got the message. Toshinori ran out of time. Aizawa starts again. While this is all fascinating, you haven't answered why you asked Nizu specifically for me. Officers haven't been able to get much from the girl. But from what they tell me, every time they brought up her quirk, she'd cry and tell them it was a curse, and to not get close or they would be erased. The elevator door opens and they step in. So I'm here as a precaution? Yes, and hopefully with you around, she'll be comfortable enough to tell us more about her kidnappers. Fair enough. And the other kid? What's his situation? He admitted to using his quirk, but considering the amount of villains present, there seems to be sufficient evidence his life and the girls were in danger, so we don't plan on charging him. Aizawa's grunt was his only response. Apparently Eri, that's the girl's name, refuses to leave Midoriya's, the boy, side. So we'll be talking to them together. The elevator stops and the doors open, depositing them onto the floor. Naomasa heads to the first door on the left, nodding to the officers standing outside. He opens the door and walks in. The room was your standard hospital room, with 2 beds and curtains to separate for privacy. The kids laid next to one another on Eri's bed, probably not to disturb her foredrip. Eri had been changed into a hospital gown and had had her bandages changed. While he did close his eyes for her sake, apparently Midoriya was next to her the entire time. She wouldn't allow anyone to come near her without him, according to the doctors. When they entered, as he predicted, Eri scrunched up closer to Midoriya for protection. The boy was wearing a pair of basketball shorts and a long-sleeved red shirt that read unicorn on it. Wait, shouldn't he be wearing a gown too? When did he get a change of clothes? Well, it doesn't matter. Midoriya looks up at them and gives a polite smile before looking past the detective. His smile becomes more genuine. Eraser. Naomasa turns, intending to ask how Aizawa knows the kid, but the look of horror on the pro-hero's face stops him. Aizawa mutters something that suspiciously sounds like, "Oh God, he's real," before schooling his expression back to vague disinterest. He tilts his head at Midoriya. Hello again, problem child. Midoriya whispers a few things to Eri before getting up and walking toward him. Hi. I'm Izuku Midori-no. The boy is interrupted by his own tripping on his feet. The detective easily catches him while he shakes his head. Sorry about that, I can be a bit clumsy sometimes. Naomasa smiles. You're all right, Midoriya? The kid smiles, straightening up. We don't want to take up too much of your time. You should know, your mom is on her way and should be here soon. I'm just here to confirm some details with you about what happened. And I was hoping to talk to Eri too. Midoriya's easygoing nature seems to slip. It's barely noticeable, Naomasa probably only can because of his experience. The kid's eyes narrow, looking him up and down before glancing at Aizawa. Just as quick as it was gone, Midoriya's relaxed nature returns. Sure. Naomasa nods, pulling up a chair for both him and Aizawa. We'll start with you, Midoriya. If you can just give me a recounting of everything that happened today with Eri. And I am obligated to inform you that I have a lie detector quirk. I can't turn it off. So I'll be able to tell if you're telling the truth or not. Usually, when you tell someone about his quirk, they get nervous. No longer able to look him in the eye. Their responses become very slow, like they're thinking about every word they say, which they probably are. Not with Midoriya though. It's as if Christmas came early. Wow. He hears a groan next to him from Aizawa. That's so cool. Does someone have to directly respond to you for it to work? What about partial truths? Partial lies? Does it work over the phone? What about dash? Problem child. Naomasa doesn't have to know Aizawa as well as he does to know the man is contemplating several life choices right now. You'll be answering the questions today. And now Midoriya's face is as if Aizawa burned his early Christmas present. The detective chuckles a bit. How about this? We'll get to more of your questions later once we finish with you and Eri. And no, my quirk doesn't work over the phone. The kid's mood brightens a bit. So, what happened today? And so, Midoriya recounts what happened with Eri. How he was trapped in a tunnel, used decoys and throwing knives to get out, stabbed a villain in the eye, got trapped again, used more tricks to get the villains to fight each other, fought off the last one, and All Might finish them off. Everything rang true. You seem to have a very fine-tuned control of your quirk, Aizawa says once Midoriya is done. You teach yourself that? No, Midoriya says, scratching his cheek. My dad taught me. Well, just know you were extremely lucky today. And you should not keep pushing it. Practice restraining yourself from using your quirk in public. Aizawa warns. Sounds like a story? Naomasa asks, raising an eyebrow and looking between the two. Aizawa shrugs. Kid used his quirk to get out of my capture weapon. Before he could get a response off, Midoriya quickly cut in. I swear I did not use my quirk to get out of your capture weapon. I got a truth. Aizawa frowns. Oh, he does not like the look on Midoriya's face. Of course, that's assuming I was ever actually tied up in your capture weapon in the first place, Eraser. Tsukachi, Aizawa says in a strained voice. Ask Eri your questions. Sooner would be better. Midoriya nods happily. I'll let her know you guys are all right. He walks back over to the girl, who had been watching them apprehensively the entire time. Hey, Eri, Midoriya says in a lighter voice. Those men there want to ask you some questions if that's okay? Eri shook her head violently. No. My curse could hurt them. Till they can't dash. See? Midoriya gently shushes her, patting her head. You see the one with long hair and scarf? That's Eraserhead. He's a hero who can turn off other people's quirks. Eri's wide eyes somehow became even wider. He can turn off my curse? Midoriya bends down a bit to look her in the eye. Your quirk, Eri. Your quirk. There's nothing wrong with you. Everything is because of the man who hurt you. She shudders but continues to look at him. And, with a little practice, I just know you could learn to control your quirk. But Eraserhead can stop any accidents. You can't hurt anyone. Maybe he could show you. Midoriya looks at them for silent permission. Naomasa nods and Aizawa gets up and walks slowly over, stopping in the middle of the room. Midoriya waves his hand and an exact copy of him appears next to Aizawa, smiling and waving at Eri. Hiya! After a few seconds, Aizawa activates his quirk on Midoriya and the clone disappears. See? Midoriya asks while the little girl looks at Aizawa in awe. Okay. He can stay. Eri finally says. It's nice to meet you, Eri. My name is Shota Aizawa. Midoriya looks like he's about to combust. He's so excited. Oh my god, in Eraserhead's name. Aizawa clears his throat. Great job, Eri. You're doing so well. And the other man, Midoriya pulls something from his pocket and opens it in front of her. His name is Naomasa Tsukachi. And look, you see that? That's his police badge. He's a police officer who also wants to help you. And if Eraserhead likes him, then I think we can trust him. Midoriya smiles more and his police badge? That's in his wallet, which is... Naomasa gets up and feels around his pockets, which is gone. He looks over to see Aizawa giving him a look that says, see. And he can't help but agree. Naomasa walks over slowly until Eri nods. Both he and Aizawa walk over to the side of the bed, the detective raising an eyebrow and holding his hand out. The kid at least has the decency to look a bit sheepish. Sorry. Midoriya apologizes while handing the wallet back. I thought it would get her to trust you. Naomasa sighs. It's fine, kid. Just don't make a habit out of it. He pauses. Your dad teach you that too? Midoriya's smile returns. Nope. Alright, not enough time to deal with whatever that means. Oh, Midoriya. Before I forget, Mr. Yagi, All Might's secretary, wanted to talk to you in the empty room down the hall once we're done here. Midoriya gives him a confused look but nods. Aizawa gives him a look too, but chooses not to comment. Alright, Eri, we're gonna be asking you some questions about the men who took you, okay? She curls up against Midoriya, who holds her close. Eri looks up, and after a reassuring nod from her savior, Eri looks down and nods at the detective. Tashinori is watching the slowly fading sunset from the empty hospital room he's in when he hears the door open behind him. Hello, sir. You wanted to talk to me? Tashinori turns around to see the young man he had requested to see. He was shaking slightly, his eyes darting around the room. But whenever they landed on him, he could tell they were studying him closely. Ah, young Midoriya. Thank you for seeing me. How is young Eri? As good as she could be, I guess. Young Midoriya shrugs. It's an honor you want to talk to me, sir, but I only have a few minutes. Eri is with Mr. Aizawa and I told her I'd be back as quickly as I could. The man gave a deep, short laugh and waved him off. Of course. I wanted to ask you something. But first, and in a puff of smoke, Mr. Yagi was gone. And in his place, All Might quickly runs over and places his hand over the teen's mouth, letting him scream to his heart's content. I probably could have done this better. After a minute of the boy's screaming being mixed with so many questions, Tashinori could never hope to keep up. He let go of the hyperventilating boy, and deflated, coughing up a bit of blood. I literally have so many questions I don't know where to start. How about I start then, young man? Yes, I am All Might. And what you see is the result of a fight with a villain from 5 years ago. 5 years? No way, Toxic Chainsaw did this. You know your stuff. But no. This was a fight that was kept completely hidden from the media. I defeated the villain, but it cost me most of my respiratory system and my stomach. So now, I can only do hero work 3 hours a day. And the rest of the day he gestures to himself. Is that why you had to leave so fast after the police came? That's right, young man. Young Midoriya's eyes continue to scan over him, his hands are twitching and moving, like he wants to write everything down. Wow, the boy settles on again. Tashinori chuckles, but before he could answer, the boy stops shaking and frowns down at his shoes. His face scrunches up. He looks up and opens his mouth, but no sound comes out. Young Midoriya goes back to frowning at his shoes. If you want to ask me a question, young man, go ahead. Just try to keep it to one at a time. Young Midoriya chuckles, but there's no humor in it. I have too many questions to count, but there's one I think I want to ask. I've wanted to ask you for a long time, but now that you're actually here. Even though the teen is still looking down, Tashinori smiles. Ask away. Young Midoriya takes a deep breath, still looking at his shoes. So you've heard the story by now about what happened? I did. Detective Tsukachi gave me the rundown. The use of your quirk was excellent. Tashinori was hoping the compliment would help calm the boy down, but instead, he flinches. You see, the thing is, my, quirk came in a bit late. I actually thought I was going to be quirkless. But still, I wanted to be a hero, to save people like you and someone else. Young Midoriya takes another breath and finally looks up at him. Could I have been a hero without any powers? Tashinori takes a moment. The silence in the room is somehow louder than anything. I won't lie to you, young man. If you had asked me that this morning, I don't think you would have liked my answer. It's almost amusing how much the boy deflating reminds him of himself. However, the kid's head snaps back up, eyes sparkling. While the use of your quirk was impressive, what I saw was even more. I saw a young boy risking his life to protect an even younger girl. He fought the villain head-on with no hesitation. Tell me, young Midoriya, at any point, did your body move before you had a chance to think? A nod. That's what I thought. Do you know what a lot of stories about great heroes have in common? Their bodies move before they can think. Young Midoriya's body begins to tremble, tears falling from his eyes. Toshinori's not even sure he was aware of it. Today, you showed with or without your quirk, you could protect that girl. It's what inspired me to push past my own limits and step in at the end. The boy falls to his knees, tears in full force now. Young man, even without a quirk, you too could become a hero. The boy sobs harder. Toshinori smiles, kneeling and placing his hands on his shoulders to act as an anchor. He can hear a mixture of thank yous blended in with the crying. After another minute of crying, young Midoriya finally gains enough control of himself to try and stand. He was able to with Toshinori's help. Are you okay, my boy? Young Midoriya chuckles, trying and failing to wipe the rest of his tears off. What? No, yeah, I'm fine. Never better, actually. Are you okay, All Might? It looked like you were getting a bit emotional there for a second. The pro-hero chuckles along. Yes, I think I'll manage. He lets another few seconds pass between them. Tell me, young Midoriya, what do you know about my quirk? As he hoped it would, that seems to sober the boy right up. That's the thing, isn't it? No one really knows anything about it. That's right. And what if I told you I could give you my abilities? What, like a present? That doesn't make any sense. But it's true. Toshinori cuts in, hoping to stop a question storm before it starts. I could give you my awesome abilities. You see, my quirk is a sacred torch that is passed down from one person to another. And you can be next. Young Midoriya looks like what he imagines a computer would look like if it was a person and crashing. Maybe he should have waited a bit before dumping this on the kid? He's had a long day. But it still felt right to do this now. Toshinori realizes while in his thoughts that young Midoriya's mouth had started moving again. There's barely any sound, but he probably couldn't understand even if he could hear it. Stop nerding out. That brings the boy back again. You see, my quirk is a torch that is passed from user to user. One person improves the power before handing it to the next and so on. It is called one for all. Yes. I still meant what I said earlier. Without mine or your quirk, you could still be a great hero. But the truth is, I've been on the hunt for a new successor for a while now. And I think that person is you. What do you say? Young Midoriya smiles, a bright one. He looks down at his shoes before looking back up. It means so much you'd give something like this to me. And I know if I was still truly quirkless I would have said yes immediately. But Toshinori tilts his head in curiosity. I have powers already. And your quirk should go to someone who would need the help more than me. So thank you, All Might. But, another deep breath where young Midoriya looks away. But no! Toshinori smiles and waits for the boy to chance a glance at him. He does a few seconds later and he's satisfied to see the relief wash over the kid. Sorry. I thought you might be mad. Nonsense, young Midoriya. Toshinori reassures. A noble reason to decline that only serves to reaffirm me that you will make a great hero. The tears start to form again. But we may have to work on the waterworks, kid. Young Midoriya laughs. Yeah, I know, it's we. All Might laughs, he's never gonna get tired of seeing the kid's shocked face. Yes, we. Just because I won't be passing my quirk on to you doesn't mean I don't want to help you become the best hero you could be. The old pro smiles deviously, knowing what this will do. We should exchange numbers. As he thought, young Midoriya nearly falls over before nodding so fast, he's a blur. He probably can't form words right now. After switching phones, in which the green-haired boy holds his as if it's some lost treasure, Toshinori looks away, coughing a bit into his hand. You know, young Midoriya, when you were getting ready to ask me your question, I thought it'd be for a dash. Toshinori looks back to see the boy nervously scratching the back of his neck holding a notebook and pen. All Might smiles, taking the book. Shota closes the hospital door behind him, sighing. He walks up to Tsukachi as he is finishing a conversation with one of his officers. How's it looking in there? The detective asks him. Mother's in there. Had to leave before I drowned. The other man gives him a quizzical look but doesn't ask. Alright, next we should dash. The man is interrupted by his phone ringing. Oh, excuse me. Tsukachi answers and Shota doesn't pay too close attention before the detective loudly exclaims, What? When? The pause. Who authorized that? Another pause. Alright, I'm coming down there. Tsukachi trots over to the elevator and pushes the button, waiting impatiently for it to come. What happened? Shota can't help himself. Those two mask-wearing villains? Apparently their paperwork was pushed through immediately and they were allowed to leave on bail. Smells dirty, Shota states the obvious. That's what I'm gonna figure out. Wait, why dash? The man is cut off by his own body exploding, his blood joining his partner's in painting the once pristine wall. Overhaul pants. The blood on his hands not so much dripping off, more shaking off due to his quivering rage. He had lost Eri. On top of that, having to soil his hands. The Yakuza boss is barely able to get his hands in the sink to wash them, while the ever-loyal Chrono waits silently with towels. I want all of our contacts in the police force looking for Eri. Overhaul says while scrubbing his hands. Already done, sir. Overhaul knows the man well enough to know he wants to say more, so he waits. Sir, may I speak freely? Overhaul hums, taking the towels and wiping his arms. Our businesses and reserves of Eri's blood won't keep us going forever. We may have to consider looking for beneficiaries to fund us. Overhaul knows this. Chrono does as well. But there's no reason to pretend like the possibility isn't there. We focus on Eri for now. When I believe we should look for others to help us monetarily, we will. And not any sooner. Make sure everyone understands this. Chrono agrees. As for right now, he looks back over the blood-splattered wall. It appears I do not have as much control as I had thought. Get someone to clean this up and bring me Nemoto. Let's see if any others in our ranks share their opinion on quirklessness. Okay, that's good, but keep your knees bent a little. There you go, now spread your feet just a smidge farther apart. Balance is important. Like this. Yes. You're doing so well. Alright now, just like we practiced, ready? Okay, lunge. Lunge. Make sure your feet are planted firmly on the ground. Lunge. Better. But make sure to extend your arm as you're moving forward. Oh, what was I doing? You're lunging and then after you're done, extending your arm. You have to do both at the same time. I'm sorry. Don't be. You're getting it way faster than I did at your age. Keep learning this fast, and I might have to start taking lessons from you. Really? That's right. So ready to try again? Yes. Okay, now lunge. Begin lunge. See, you're already nearly there. Problem child. Lunge. Oh, hi eraser. When'd you get here? A sigh. Problem child, do I really need to tell you what's wrong here? Izuku tilts his head in confusion. What's wrong here? What does he mean? It had been 2 weeks since Eri had been rescued. Most of that time had been spent with the little girl in the hospital, and subsequently, most of Izuku's out-of-school time had been spent at that hospital too. Due to being attacked, Izuku was given an initial couple of days off of school. This had proved to be important since Eri wouldn't let any of the doctors near her, much less run any tests, without Izuku by her side giving her reassurances. The hospital showed their gratitude by not saying anything when the pair fell asleep next to each other for the first couple of nights. They still didn't know what her quirk was. The only thing they knew was that it could erase you if you got too close. There was also the problem of bringing up anything having to do with the girl's quirk that sent her spiraling so fast that it sometimes took Izuku hours to bring her back. While the quirk counselors were eager to have her demonstrate, given what little they knew about this overhaul guy, absolutely no one was forcing her to use it until she was ready. It was amazing how fast adults can leave a room when you start to roll a knife through your fingers like it's a poker chip. Eraser said he didn't approve when Izuku did that. But the man had spent almost as much time in the hospital room as he did, and never stopped him. The pro hero didn't say much in that time. He usually just sat in the corner, or sometimes laid in a yellow sleeping bag. What Izuku could learn from him was that he patrolled at night, and apparently he was a teacher at UA, but for some reason didn't have a class to teach right now, so his days were free to keep an eye on them. After some time, they couldn't put off the discussion of where Eri was going to go after the hospital any longer. Orphanage and foster care were off the table before they even sat down. Eraser said it would be most logical if he used his emergency foster license and took her. He could prevent any quirk accidents, and the principal of UA had offered to let the hero live on campus with her, also meaning Eri would have protection from her kidnappers. The principal had a teacher's dorm begin construction the moment he heard about what happened. Did he know what was going to happen? Izuku doesn't like to think about it. Eraserhead's constant presence in the room, along with Izuku's continuous praise of the man, made Eri comfortable enough to agree to live with him. The hero's ability to stop her quirk, yes, they finally got her to start calling it a quirk, probably played a part too. The only caveat was that she still wanted to see Izuku a lot. In another turn of events that Izuku didn't want to think too much about either, UA's principal Nizu had anticipated this and given Eraser a pass to get on campus to give to Izuku. And after a couple of tries, he was able to get it out of the man's hand. And that leads to today. Where Izuku stands in Eri's room with her, he wears a brown long-sleeved shirt that says, Variant, in orange letters while Eri wears pink and light blue pajamas. A more tired than usual Eraserhead stares at him from the doorway. Something was wrong here? At least according to Eraser, what could it be? He looks around the room for anything wrong. The toys were a mess on the ground, the bed wasn't made, Eri holding one of his daggers, her books were not put away on the shelf, or she hadn't changed yet. Izuku shrugs. Nope, he just can't figure it out. Eraser pinches the bridge of his nose. The dagger, Midoriya. The dagger. Why is Eri holding a weapon? Oh. Izuku still doesn't see what's wrong, but at least he knows what the man is talking about now. We're training. Training. Eraser deadpants. Please don't be mad, Mr. Aizawa, Eri starts. Eraser knows that Izuku knows the man softens when she speaks. They both also know Izuku would never call him out on it. I want to help people, that's like Mr. Mido. So, she trails off. So she asked me for help and that's what I'm doing. Izuku finishes with a bright smile on his face. Eraserhead shifts his gaze between them for a few seconds before fixing a softer look on Eri. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be trained. But from now on, it should be done with a quick glare at Izuku, licensed hero present. And weapons should not be the first thing you learn. Oh, come on, Eraser. I started learning at her age and look how great I turned out. Izuku's attempts to defend himself don't work out if the man's blank stare is any indication. I am not going to even acknowledge that with a response, Eraser says. And kid, I told you to call me Aizawa when I'm not on duty. He waits for a nod before continuing. Either way, All Might and some of his friends are here. He's waiting for you outside. Okay. Izuku raises his arms in surrender. Just one last thing before I go? You're here now, so we have a hero present like you wanted. Irisazawa looks pained. Fine. Make it quick. Great. Izuku picks a teddy bear off the ground and places it on the bed, holding it upright by its head. Okay, Eri, now combine everything we learned today. She nods, lowering herself into the stance Izuku showed her while narrowing her eyes and sticking her tongue out of one side of her mouth in concentration. Go! Eri lunges, stabbing the toy bear through the chest. Good. Now twist it. Twist the dagger. There you go. That'll cause maximum dash. That's enough. Much like a certain dagger is doing to a bear right now, Aizawa's voice cuts through their lesson. He comes over and plucks the weapon out of the little girl's grasp. I'll be keeping this for the rest of the day. Say your goodbyes, problem child, and meet All Might outside. And with that, the two are alone again. I'm sorry I got you in tea trouble, Mr. Mido, Eri says, looking down while her eyes begin to water. Izuku puts an arm around her and uses his other hand to pat her head. Nah, I'm not in trouble. And it's just Mido. The pause. I'll stop saying Mr. when you call Mr. Aizawa by his name. Hey! Izuku backs up a step to look at Eri. Was that snark? I am sorry. Eri practically yells, shaking her head. I was just see you and I thought dash. Izuku silences her with a hug, which she returns after getting over her shock. Don't be sorry. I'm so proud of you. The hug becomes tighter. The two stay like that until Izuku eventually forces himself to let go. Alright, I gotta go now. But I'll see you soon, okay? The little unicorn keeps a hold of his sleeve. Before you go, one more time? Izuku smiles, knowing what she wants. He kneels in front of her and opens his palm. From it, a mini fireworks display plays out in front of them. Eri's eyes widen as the different colors explode in the air between them. She leans closer, mouth agape, just like the first time he did it. And while he hadn't been able to get her to smile yet, seeing the corner of her mouth twitch just a little, Izuku knew it was only a matter of time. Young Midoriya. Izuku smiles, jumping down the stairs and running up to All Might in his small form. He was wearing the same plain white shirt and green cargo pants he had been the day they met. A favorite outfit of his apparently. All Might. Izuku waves back, joining the man. The two began to walk through campus with All Might leading the way. So what's going on? Aizawa said you came to campus today with some other people? The veteran hero nods. That's right. Although they arrived before me. My former sidekick is here and Dash. Sir Night Eye is here. Is it true, Dash? All Might chuckles, placing a gentle but firm hand on the boy's head to cut him off. Yes, Sir Night. He's here with a pupil of his, a second-year student here at UA named Mirio Togata. I plan on meeting with the boy to see, he hesitates, to see if I should give one for all to him. All Might doesn't look at him. That's so cool. Izuku exclaims. The hero should have gotten whiplash with how fast he turns his head. You think so? Well, yeah. Izuku says, nodding and waving his arms around him. I mean, it's not every day you get to see the next symbol of peace chosen. My only question is, why bring me along? Izuku has seen a lot of things he couldn't believe, but seeing All Might somehow look sheepish while rubbing the back of his neck still somehow blows his mind. To be honest, my boy, if he accepts, then chances are I'll be helping to train you both together, so I wanted to give you the chance to meet. As well, he rubs his hands together. I wanted to be sure there would be no ill will between the two of you, if you know what I mean. Izuku is not nearly as good at reading people as his dad is. But even he gets where this is going. Don't worry, All Might. Izuku smiles. I said no so someone else would have the chance. Wouldn't make much sense for me to get upset over it. The number one hero smiles, visibly sagging his shoulders. That's a great relief to hear. The two idly chat for a few minutes longer while All Might leads them through several winding halls in the main building of the school. Eventually, they come across two doors, side by side. All Might opens the one on the right and holds it open for Izuku to enter. To put it simply, it was an observation room. The entire room was empty and blank, except for the left wall not being a wall, but instead, one big window to watch the next room over. The other room, where presumably the left door led to, was much bigger, with the walls and floor padded. Two figures stood in the other room, talking to each other. One was a boy, Mirio Togata if Izuku had to guess, wearing a white, gold and blue suit with a long red cape. He had blonde hair and was built pretty well. The other person was a much smaller, older man wearing a white and yellow suit complete with a yellow cape and domino mask. He lifts his foot to scratch it and Izuku sees several holes on the bottom of his boot. His notebook nearly conjures itself with all the questions. Izuku is bursting with, "Ah, you're here. And you brought a guest." Izuku looks away from the people in front of him to look at the only other occupant of the room. He was tall, wearing a plain white suit with a red dotted tie. He wore triangular glasses and had dark green hair with 3 yellow streaks in it. It was only the thought of embarrassing himself in front of All Might, and probably embarrassing the man too, that kept Izuku from running up to the hero for an autograph. No, that can wait. All Might places a hand on Izuku's shoulder. Yes, I am here just like you wanted. And this is Izuku Midoriya, the boy I told you about over the phone. Midoriya. The man's sharp eyes locked onto Izuku and he knew from experience when he was being analyzed. The look was cold and calculating. The man might as well have yelled he didn't like him. Instinct told him to turn invisible and leave a clone, but he held the man's gaze. If he wanted to analyze him, then Izuku would return the favor. He wasn't one to back down. Especially from someone who was judging him without having even met him. Thank you for coming, All Might. I promise Togata is everything I said he is and more. Night Eye says without breaking eye contact with Izuku. Would you mind if I spoke with Midoriya here alone for a moment? Are you sure about that? I wouldn't mind staying on this side of the glass. Something in All Might's voice made Izuku break the staring contest to look at his favorite hero, only to see him slightly trembling as he watched the other pair through the glass. You didn't mention Torino-sensei would be here. Oh, I didn't? Must have slipped my mind. Night Eye says in a way that suggests it in fact did not slip his mind. Well, this will give you the chance to become acquainted with Togata, and Gran says he's been wanting to discuss your lack of calls. All Might whimpers? No, that can't be right. Either way, after a brief coughing fit, the man leaves to the other room, leaving Izuku and Night Eye alone. Izuku Midori-no. The man starts, adjusting his glasses. You are even more unimpressive to look at than I thought you'd be. Wait, he must have misheard because, no, he heard right. Who just insults someone like that to their face? Be that as it may, Night Eye continues, choosing not to acknowledge what must have been a bewildered look on Izuku's face. There must be some intelligence in you to turn down the quirk. Not many would know they were unworthy of it. So I thank you for allowing someone truly deserving of the quirk like Togata to receive it. That is all. And with that, Night Eye strolls past him toward the door, completely unbothered by anything he just said. Wait. Mirai raises an eyebrow and turns to face the boy, his hand still on the doorknob. Midoriya's head was lowered, his hair covering his eyes and fists clenched. What could possibly be the problem? He had already thanked the unremarkable boy, what more could there be? Who are you to decide? The boy says quietly. Mirai scoffs. If you're trying to have a conversation with someone, the least you can do is speak loud enough to be heard. Midoriya looks up, anger set in the face Mirai didn't think possible in someone so young. I said, who are you to decide who's worthy of All Might's quirk? It's his quirk, not yours. The decision is his and only his. Mirai only offers to narrow his eyes. You are a child with a very limited view of the world. You shouldn't talk about things you know nothing about. Midoriya's glare doesn't cease. Did All Might tell you how exactly we met? The bi-spectacled man took his hand off the doorknob and fully turned around, crossing his arms. He didn't know where this was going, but it didn't seem like it would be done soon. He told me he met you after you rescued a little girl from her kidnappers. Right. And do you want to know what I've been doing since? Hopefully getting to the point, Mirai replies dryly. I've been helping her recover. Midoriya waves his arms in the air in frustration. Because some evil man kept her and used her for her quirk for years. While that is horrible, I fail to see what that has to do with Dash. Because you're doing the same thing. Midoriya yells, taking a step forward. That causes Mirai to stop, his arms unfolding. What? Midoriya takes a breath. Then another. His glare lessening. I'm sorry. That's too far. But the point is, she was used for her quirk because the man who had her thought he could play God with it. And it feels like you're doing the same thing with Togata and All Might. Mirai's mind races, trying to find any correlation and these accusations, but before he can respond, Midoriya continues. The girl and her quirk were used to further that man's goals, and it just feels like to me you're doing the same thing. You're pulling the strings on both All Might and Togata so his quirk goes where you want, regardless of what's best for anyone involved. Have you ever considered that Togata might not even want the quirk? Had he? All of his plans had included when Mirio would accept the quirk. He hadn't even considered the possibility of his student not accepting. He saw it as a certainty, like his visions. Midoriya continues to stare at him, glare almost completely gone. I'm sorry again. You're not as bad as that man, and whatever your goals are for Togata getting the quirk I'm sure are noble. But whatever you're working toward, using and manipulating people to get there, will just taint it. The end doesn't justify the means. The former sidekick stilled for a moment. Is that what he had been doing? He certainly didn't see it that way, but from a certain point of view, he had initially recruited Togata with the sole purpose of preparing him for One for All, but it was all to save the life of his friend. And make sure society still has a symbol to continue to look up to. Surely, these goals were worth him doing whatever he had to, at least he thought so. He'd have to continue to think on this. Night Eye walks up to Midoriya. You have given me much to think about. I can see why All Might took an interest in you. Your future is certain to be interesting. He held out his hand. Normally, I wouldn't ask, but after what you've said, I'd like to use my quirk to see into yours. Midoriya's face forms one of confusion. My future? Mirai nods. Yes. But be warned. My visions are never wrong. Whatever I see will come to pass. Midoriya smiles, shaking his head. You can look if you want, but I don't want you to tell me whatever it is. No. Yeah. The smile somehow gets brighter. The future's whatever we make it to be. Nothing's set in stone. I don't want to know because even if it's bad, I'll twist that future. The hero chuckles a bit, holding his hand out further. If that's what you believe. Midoriya nods vigorously, taking his hand, and Mirai looks him in the eye. Fire. As far as can be seen, everything is on fire. Wherever they are, there's no power, so it's dark. The only light coming from the raging flames around them. Izuku Midoriya is on his hands and knees, coughing on the ground. A dark green cloak with a hood is draped over him, covering the rest of his body. The fire moves, the heat increases, and for a moment, so does the light. Midoriya's face can be seen. It's covered in equal parts soot, bruises, and blood. His hair is drenched in sweat that flows down his face and mixes with his tears. He coughs more. Slow, methodical footsteps make their way toward the boy from the shadows. It's a man. He wears armor, has a cloak as well, and a horned helmet on his head. He stops next to the boy. I know you won't understand. The man says. But what I do for the benefit of the entire universe. And Midoriya's voice can barely be heard over the fire. It's low and hoarse. And all of the people you've killed. Necessary sacrifices for the greater good. The man replies, matter-of-factly. I know you can see the logic in my actions. What has dashed? The man stops. The fire illuminates a look of realization. Ah, it's those friends of yours, isn't it? Midoriya immediately tries and fails to get on his feet several times. The man doesn't seem to notice. No, it makes sense. They've made you soft. Well, no matter. The man looks back down at Midoriya. I'll see to them myself. Over my dead body. Midoriya shouts. The man suddenly turns, reaching his arm out to grab at seemingly nothing, but that wasn't the case. A second Midoriya appears behind the man trying to stab him, but he's stopped when his target grabs his wrist. They struggle for a moment before the man tightens his grip on the wrist. Midoriya cries out in pain, dropping his dagger. I told you to always watch what you say. The man says before grabbing Midoriya by the throat with his left hand and lifting him effortlessly. Midoriya kicks violently as he's raised into the air. He grabs onto the man's arms and thrashes around as hard as he can, throwing his body in any direction he can. The only sounds now are the crackling of the fires and Midoriya's choking. The man looks at something in the distance before looking back. His face turns to anguish before saying in a low voice, Izuku, there was no other way. Midoriya's struggle begins to slow. His legs and arms still and fall to his side. His face is blue, and his eyes bloodshot while he stares at his killer. A loud crack and the world fades. Mirai backs up a step. His vision returns instantly, but he gives his head a second to digest what he saw before looking at the boy in front of him. No longer blue in the face and having the life choked out of him, now he just stares at him with concern in his thankfully not bloodshot eyes. Midoriya. That bad, huh? He says with a little too nonchalance for his liking. Well, still, don't tell me. I don't want to know. Midoriya gives him one more smile before leaving for the other room, leaving Mirai alone with his thoughts. Toshinori is probably a bit too relieved to see young Midoriya, but still relieved nonetheless. Come here, my boy, for introductions. He calls over. Midoriya has an unreadable expression on his face when he first comes in, but quickly transitions to his easygoing smile as he walks over to them. The glass window of the observation room is tinted so people on this side can't see past it, adding in the fact the other room is soundproof and he has no idea what went on between Midoriya and Mirai. He hopes it wasn't anything too bad. He knows from his phone call that his old friend was not pleased to hear he offered one for all to somebody else. At least things had been going all right on this side of the glass. He had already shown young Togata his small form, eliciting a scream from the young man. Not gonna lie, he was kind of hoping that reaction was exclusive to Midoriya, but he had never been very lucky. On a more positive note, he had only been whacked by Gran 3 times so far. Young Midoriya comes up to them and shakes the hands of the other two as they all introduce themselves. Toshinori suppresses a chuckle at the young man's grimace as he shakes Gran Torino's hand. They couldn't get much farther, however, before Mirai walks into the room, looking a bit more disheveled than he's used to seeing the man. "Come on, boy." Gran growls to Midoriya. "Let's give them some privacy for this part." "Okay." Young Midoriya agrees easily, walking toward the door with the older man, notebook in hand. "So I couldn't help but notice the holes on the bottom of your shoes, so you shoot air out of them? Can you control the velocity? How about selecting which holes the air comes out of? Or is it all or nothing? Are they anywhere else on your body? When did you dash?" Toshinori knew the man liked to joke about dropping dead at any moment, but as the door closed behind them, it looked like Gran wanted nothing more than to drop right at that moment. All Might shakes his head in amusement before turning back to Togata and Mirai. "It's the young man who speaks first. It's truly an honor to meet you, All Might. Sir talks about you all the time." Huh, Toshinori didn't know Mirai could look embarrassed, even if it's only a little. He gives the boy a warm smile. "I'm sure he does. But tell me, young Togata, what do you know of my quirk?" And Toshinori tells him about One for All. Just like he did with Midoriya. That it's a powerful stockpiling quirk passed from generation to generation since the dawn of quirks. And now he wanted him to be the next user. Togata points at himself, blue eyes wide and disbelieving. "Emi? You want me to inherit something so, me? The kid who lost all of his clothes on live television?" Toshinori lets out a good-natured laugh. "Yes, from what Mirai tells me, my own conversation with you, and it seems even Gran Torino has taken a liking to you. And I must tell you, that is no easy feat." He calms down a bit before continuing. "I know this is a big decision, young man, so do not feel pressured to answer now or even say yes." Mirai's eyes flicker to him. "I will not be upset either way." Young Togata looks back and forth between the two men for a minute before closing his eyes and rocking his head side to side. He stops for a long breath before looking back up, staring the hero in the eye. "I can never thank you enough for this opportunity, All Might. But I'm sorry, I can't accept." Nightie's jaw drops, but All Might gives a small nod, still smiling. "And that's perfectly all right. Mirio, Night Eye sounds like the boy just refused his own quirk." "Why?" Togata looks his mentor in the eye as well. "I understand you wanted me to accept, sir. It's probably why you chose me as an intern in the first place, right?" Togata's voice cracks a little while his body sags. "But it just wouldn't be right. I still have so much to learn with my quirk, and adding another on top of that would leave me stuck trying to master 2 quirks when I could be out there saving lives." Another deep breath. I still think I can be Lemillion even with just my permeation. And One for All should go to someone who needs it. I understand if you don't want to mentor me anymore, sir." Mirai has a contemplative look on his face while he looks at his student. Each second feels like an hour as it drags by. Finally, the hero straightens up and bows at a full 90 degrees in front of Togata. "Yes, sir." "I apologize, Mirio. It is true I initially scouted you because I thought you would be a good vessel for One for All. However, after watching you grow this past year and having a different perspective shown to me recently, I realized that it was wrong of me to use you in that way, and I apologize again. Even without One for All, you will make a great hero, and I understand if you don't want me to mentor you any longer." Togata looks stunned. Toshinori can't blame him, he feels the same. Finally, the blonde-haired boy finds his words. If you're willing to be more open with me in the future, sir, then I'd be honored to stay under your tutelage." Mirai stands back up with a small smile on his face and agrees. "Well, Toshinori claps his hands. I think this went well. Young Togata, if you could retrieve young Midoriya and Gran Torino for us. The boy heartily agrees and runs over to the door. All Might turns to his former sidekick. So what did you and young Midoriya speak about? Mirai opens his mouth, but before he can reply, Togata's scream from the doorway interrupts him. Toshinori quickly buffs up and speeds over to the door, ready for whatever danger, only to see Togata on his knees, hands on his head. In front of him, Midoriya and Gran Torino lay in a pool of blood. Several wounds decorate both their bodies, and entrails lay across them and the floor. Hands, arms, legs, and other appendages are twisted in the wrong direction. Toshinori connects the dots immediately and quickly lets his buff form go as Mirai joins him, raising a questioning eyebrow at him. How could this happen? Togata yells. We need to alert the school, there's a villain on the loose. All Might, can we dash? Toshinori places a comforting hand on his shoulder. I think everything will be all right, young Togata. All right. How can dash? He's interrupted by Midoriya and Gran's roaring laughter. The two hold their respective stomachs, laughing and rolling on the ground. The blood and body parts do not seem to bother them any. Togata looks like he's going to be sick. The two practical jokers finally sit up with Gran Torino giving Midoriya's arm a good-natured slap. I like this one too. With his quirk, I don't have to waste any more food for my pranks. I'll take him. Midoriya laughs beside him, waving his hand so the gory scene in front of them disappears in a green glow. But how? Wait, what? I dash. While Togata attempts to reclaim his thoughts, Toshinori laughs, pulling young Midoriya up while Mirai does the same for Gran. You should learn to take care of the ward you already have before getting another one, Mirai says without any heat behind it. Bah! Toshinori looks around their small group. Gran is still chuckling, Mirai handing him back his cane while Midoriya attempts to explain his quirk to a Togata that was starting to question his reality. At that moment, it felt like everything was going to be okay. Thor stares down the dark cave apprehensively. The waves of the beach their necks to crash against the rocks. He tries to calm himself down with a few long breaths, salty air filling his lungs. You do realize, Loki comments beside him, that caves are unable to move on their own? You must go in there yourself. Thor nods, letting the snide remark pass. Yes, I realize, and you are sure there is no way you can come with me? Thor turns to his brother. Loki gives a half smile. We both know this is something you have to do yourself. Thor shakes his head. Yes, I know you're right. It's just, what if they... Thor, Loki calls his brother with resolve. This won't be something you can fix overnight. It will take time. A lot of it. And you will make mistakes. You're going to have to take things slow and go at their pace. The god of mischief smirks at his brother. Not every problem can be solved by throwing your hammer at it. Thor snickers. The only ones who say such things are the ones who have never thrown a magical hammer at their problems. Both brothers take a second to laugh together. You'll be fine. It's all going to work, you'll see. Thor smiles at his brother for his words and the two quickly hug before the thunder god faces the tunnel again. He steels himself and walks in. Rainbow lights, much like the Bifrost, begin to flash around him as he nears the end of the tunnel, and with one final bright light, he's gone. Wind rushes past Izuku's face as he barely dodges one of Togata's powerful punches. He goes to grab the other boy's wrist, to hold him while he would deliver a palm strike to his elbow. Unfortunately, Togata's quirk is the bane of his existence. Izuku's hand goes right through the blonde's wrist before Togata launches his elbow out at his face. The verdant is able to lean back just in time to dodge again while at the same time, attempting to kick his opponent in the gut. Again, his attack is permeated. Dang, that kind of move would have worked a couple of months ago. Using his planted leg, Izuku kicks himself back, out of Togata's range while the other boy does the same, giving them both a moment to breathe. They are both in the same padded training room they met all those months ago. Togata wears his hero costume while Izuku wears athletic shorts and a long-sleeved lime green shirt that says, "For all time, always." They had offered him an official UA gym uniform, but he didn't want to wear it until he was an actual student. Without taking his eyes off Togata, Izuku catches a throwing knife that had been about to hit him in his ribs, thrown from the side of the room. That's probably not where it had been aimed, but she's getting better. He vanishes the knife and charges straight ahead. Togata smirks, running forward to meet his charge straight on. They are about to meet in the middle when Togata stops and pivots to look behind him. "You're not gonna get me with that this time." The blue-eyed boy throws a punch directly behind him, at seemingly nothing, before a second Izuku appears behind him, right in the fist's path. Togata yells in victory, only for his fist to go through the decoy's face. Guessed wrong. The first Izuku yells, smiling at his own victory. But much like Togata's own, it's short-lived as his fist goes through his opponent. "Made you look." Before the future member of the Big Three can even think, a third Izuku appears in the air above him. The first two having both been decoys. He drives his fist into Togata's face, feeling satisfied when his hit lands. Satisfaction turns to nausea as a surprise punch from Togata lands squarely in Izuku's gut. The boy loses some spit as he's thrown back and rolls across the floor of the mats. Togata himself hits the mat hard from Izuku's punch. The illusionist rubs his tender stomach as he gets up slowly. Togata does the same with his face. "Dang," Izuku says. "I shouldn't have gotten cocky. Jumping in the air cost me all my maneuverability." "Well, that's why we're practicing, right?" Togata says, sporting a smile despite his clearly hurting cheek. "You did get me. I really thought that decoy behind me was the real you. The punch I landed was from instinct and experience. You'll get those soon." Another throwing knife thrown from the side is close to hitting Togata but goes through his arm instead of stabbing him. "Again?" Togata asks, a knowing smirk on his face while he lowers himself into a fighting stance. "You're on." A door slamming interrupts round whatever it is. Izuku had lost count. He was having so much fun. Izuku turns around, while simultaneously dodging another throwing knife, to see a very ticked-off eraser head glaring at him. He marches right up to Izuku, stopping in front of him. "Problem child, what do you think you're doing?" "Is sparring." "You very well know that's not what I mean, Midoriya," Aizawa says, gesturing behind him. "Well, you're always talking about training awareness, so that's what Togata and I are doing." Izuku says excitedly. "We spar," while at the same time dodging Aries throwing knives. Said girl waves from her spot on the side of the ring. She's wearing a white shirt and red overalls. A neat pile of throwing knives lay next to her on a small table. Izuku continues, "And Eri gets practice too. It's a win-win for everybody." And Aizawa closes his eyes for a moment and tries to take a calming breath. It doesn't seem to work. "And do you remember what I said about me being there when Eri is using weapons?" Actually, Aizawa's eye twitches. Izuku would give anything to be in the man's class this year. "You said we just need a licensed pro hero, not you specifically. And we have that." Izuku gestures to the side of the room opposite where Eri stands. Snipe casually leans against the glass of the observation room. The cowboy hero tips his hat up a bit. "Howdy, Aizawa." It had been decided early on, since Izuku would be taking the UA entrance exam, that he would have contact with as few of the teachers as possible. It was to keep the teachers unbiased when judging him for the exam. Because of this, Izuku had only had contact with Aizawa and Snipe. Both of them, along with All Might, would not judge him for the exam. The former helped him and Eri with hand-to-hand and knife skills, and the latter handled projectiles like throwing knives. Though, Aizawa was still usually there even when he wasn't directly teaching them. Apparently, Present Mike had tried on several occasions to meet him, always being thwarted by Eraserhead. It still made Izuku giddy just thinking about a pro hero wanting to meet him of all people. He was nothing special. Aizawa turns his glare from Izuku to the other pro hero, who shrinks a little. "Explain to me in what way you thought this was a good idea." Snipe gives a little shrug. "Girl needs the practice. Midoriya and Togata have dodged everything she's thrown anyway. Why you hazing me like I'm some tenderfoot? My grandpappy had me at the range the day my quirk manifested. Right at the tender age of 4. And what about injuries?" Aizawa counters. "What happens if they get hit in a bad spot and they aren't ready?" Snipe walks up to his coworker, taking out his phone and tapping on it before showing it to the other man. Ain't that why we all got Recovery Girl on speed dial? You're all going to need her when I get done with Dash. Zawa. Eraser stops his threat, and everyone looks down to see Eri, who had manifested herself next to Izuku. She rubs her hands nervously together while glancing from the floor up to the teacher and back down again constantly. Please don't be mad at me though. It was my idea, so if you're gonna be mad at anyone, be mad at me. Aizawa takes a few seconds to inhale, before doing the same with the exhale. No, Eri. I'm not mad. I just want you all to be safe. No more weapons today. Besides, Midoriya, you should get home and get some rest for your exam tomorrow. And with that, as well as some muttering about needing more coffee, he leaves. As soon as the door closes behind him, Eri's nervous energy evaporates, and she looks up at Izuku with a mischievous smile he couldn't be more proud of. How was that, Mido? Izuku laughs, rubbing her head affectionately. Well done. I didn't even have to tell you that time to do anything. I think you're ready to try your manipulation on new targets. Both kids turn toward Togata, eyes narrowing dangerously. The boy backs up slowly, hands raised and slightly sweating. And now hold on a sec. We can talk about this. A little help snipe sense. The man's phone has suddenly become the most interesting thing to him. Would you look at that? 2 for 1 sell on Spurs. Togata looks back down to find a wide-eyed Eri staring up at him, tears beginning to well up in her innocent red eyes. Does that mean you don't want to help me? It's okay if you don't. I'm used to not getting help. No. Well, you see. Does Izuku sometimes think he's gone too far? Absolutely. Does that mean he regrets it? Absolutely not. The morning of the entrance exams finds Izuku in his room, hands balled tightly into fists while he leans on his desk for support. He tries to get a hold of his breathing, but he's just too nervous. Izuku, slow breaths come on. His mom wished him luck before leaving for work this morning, but it did little to calm his nerves. And with his emotions all over the place, he couldn't stop clones from appearing. Which is what led to 2 standing by him, looking worried. It's just a test. And you're a demigod. Honestly, no one should be more confident than you going into this thing. You've been trained by gods. 2 tries. Technically, they're not gods, 3 says from the other side of him. Even so, he is correct in other ways. You have prepared to the best of your abilities, it's illogical to worry. You're both right, I know. Izuku says, putting his face into his hands. It's just, maybe getting something to eat might help. Izuku walks out into the hallway and does his best not to groan when he sees 5 waiting for him. Maybe it would go better if the real Izuku took the test. Izuku slaps his chest as he walks past him. Solid, see? I'm real. 5 joins him in step. You may be solid, but we both know you're an imposter. A shake of his head is all Izuku manages because he is not going down that rabbit hole. He walks into the kitchen and grabs some bread from the cabinet. I hate myself. He must be having a worse morning than he thought if those ones are coming out. The greenette peers into the living room to see 9 laying face down on the couch, one arm hanging off the side. Why would UA want me? I'm worthless. All right, he knows he's losing control if 9's depression is getting out. We're gonna let everyone down? Oh good. Izuku looks to see 8 nervously pacing around. I mean, Dad is the god of mischief? How are we ever supposed to live up to that? It's getting worse, he's starting to get a headache. 2. 3. A little help with 9. And 8 is having his anxiety attack. Don't worry. I'll wash away their problems. Izuku can't hold back the groan when he sees 4 walking in with an overly sized bucket of water. No pranks. 2 and 3 rush into the room and lead 8 to the living room with 9 and 4. He's finally able to put some bread in the toaster, despite his hands trembling. He can feel his mind splitting as more clones appear, but he can't rein them in. 6 stares at the toaster dreamily, hoping to end his non-existent hunger. 12 stands in a corner, notebook in hand while he analyzes all the possibilities of the practical exam. 7 stands next to him, unbothered. Too busy fanboying over being able to finally meet the other pro heroes UA has on staff. Izuku's head is swimming. He can't focus. The boy leans himself over the sink just in case, breath coming in short gasps. Too much. There was too much happening. His senses were becoming overloaded. He had lost control. Every thought and word that went through his decoys bounced around his head. He tries to right the ship, but every time he pushes back, his head explodes in pain. Izuku clutches it with both hands. Oh yeah, that'll help. Izuku turns just enough to see Ten glaring at him. You're so pathetic. Maybe if you actually showed people like Bakugo how weak they are. A dagger appears in Ten's hand. Maybe then you wouldn't be sitting here, crying like a baby. He yells, anger radiating off him. Leave him alone. 11 stands between them. That's not gonna help and you know it. Ten holds the dagger up threateningly. Maybe if he allowed himself to get mad. So he can do what? Stab everyone? 11 asks incredulously. Better than that self-sacrificial crap he gets from you. Izuku is starting to feel colder. He thinks he hears his toast is done but he's not sure. There's screaming, talking, and everything in between going on around him. The boy closes his eyes and tries for a deep breath, but he just ends up coughing. He can't focus. He needs to, but he can't. He has nothing to focus on. His hands constantly touch different parts of his body to make sure he's still there. Arms, legs, torso, face. Oh, he was crying. He tugs on his hair, feeling quick, sharp tugs of pain. His senses dull just a little. Izuku tugs more, focusing on the pain. He knows it's bad, but it's giving him something to focus on. Something he has control over. Izuku continues for a few minutes, his headache fading and his breaths becoming deeper. Finally, he raises his hand, feeling a pulse of magic running up it, and closes his fist, and with it, all the decoys vanish. The mere 15-year-old collapses onto the ground, enjoying the large amounts of air and clear mind. That can't keep happening. He needs to do better. To be better. A quick wash-up in the bathroom later and Izuku is out the door, toast in his mouth and all. It just feels different today. Despite being at UA many times before now, today just feels so different. Izuku stares up at the H-shaped building. While usually comforted by the sight, today, it was intimidating. Messing with the straps of his backpack, because yes, he's wearing his backpack today to not risk getting in trouble for conjuring it later, Izuku walks through the open gate. Out of my way, Deku. What a way to start the day. Izuku slows, waiting for Kaken to be right on him, before stepping into his path and bumping into him. Oh Kaken, I am so sorry. I didn't know you were there. The taller boy gapes like a fish for a second before the anger returns. Izuku thinks it's best described like one of those old pre-quirk cartoons where the character's face would heat up in rage like a deranged tea kettle. Izuku tilts his head to the side a little, gesturing to the UA teachers watching the students enter from the entrance. Something wrong, Kaken? Red eyes shoot back and forth between Izuku and the teachers before he finally relents. Shoving his hands into his pockets, Kaken walks on, making sure to give him a nice shoulder check as he does so. Good luck, he calls out sweetly. After a few seconds of letting the other boy walk ahead, Izuku lets his smile drop. That was the first time they had talked in almost a year. They hadn't really since he told him to. Well, anyway, he wasn't exactly complaining, but it was still weird. The villain attack and Ares' rescue had obviously been covered up. Izuku didn't show up to school for the rest of the week after, and Aldra had said it was a personal matter. Izuku wasn't sure what to expect when he had gotten back, but the look on Kaken's face when he walked into the classroom wasn't it. Glaring and hate he had been used to, but surprise? That wasn't an emotion he can remember ever seeing on Kaken's face. There was something else there too. His brain had provided it to him, but he tossed it away immediately. He was pretty good at reading people. He had to be to do a lot of things he did with his powers. But he still gets things wrong all the time. There was no way there was any relief on Kaken's face when he got back. Even so, his former friend had left him alone after that for the rest of the year. He didn't go out of his way to talk to him, and Izuku did the same. Shaking his head, Izuku continues walking, letting his brain wander at all the possible different quirks around him. There was so much variety here. He sees 2 different girls with horns on their heads. One of them was pink. Another boy who looked like a dinosaur. Izuku is pretty sure he could ask him questions the rest of the day. Wait, floating clothes? Is that person invisible? Is that on all the time? And a boy with messy grayish-blue hair who's... Izuku's thoughts come to a screeching halt when his foot hits uneven pavement, tripping him. Heimdall is never gonna let me live this down. Izuku got himself ready to roll when hit the ground, only to never hit it. Ooh-ah! Izuku yelps, his arms and legs flailing. I'm flying. How? What? Are you okay? Izuku turns his head to see a girl standing beside him. She is a brunette with her hair in a bob cut. 2 bangs frame her face with blush marks on her cheeks. Cute. Wait, what? I'm sorry I didn't ask you first, but I stopped you with my quirk, she says with a nice smile on her face while straightening him. But I figured you wouldn't mind me catching you. She presses her fingers together and Izuku feels the weight he didn't realize was gone return. A part of his brain was attempting to analyze that, but it wasn't working for some reason. Isn't this all, like, way nerve-wracking? She continues. Why yeah, what am I doing? Well, I guess I'll see you inside. Bye. She waves and walks away, her smile never leaving her face. Does that count as talking to a girl? I'm gonna count it. The written portion of the exam was thankfully not as hard as he thought it'd be. Resisting the urge to move as the crowd was herded like cows into the auditorium, Izuku finds his seat next to Kaken, only receiving a glare as a greeting. The lights dim and smoke fills the stage as Present Mike rises behind the podium. What up, UA candidates? I'm your master of ceremonies, Present Mike. Can I get a yeah? His dad taught him the power of showmanship and style. He respects it, and he's sure not gonna leave the Present Mike hanging. He stands up and pumps his fist. Yeah. No one joins him. Izuku doesn't care. This helps calm him down. Present Mike shoots him finger guns. Oh my god. That listener gets it. But keeping it mellow is fine too. The hero goes on to explain the practical exam while they're handed cards with their test sites on them, and Izuku holds his excited mumbles pretty well if he says so himself. He's only a little sad he's not with Kaken. What he would give to have a decoy just follow him around the entire time annoying him. After the pro is done explaining the 3 faux villains and how they can bring anything they want, a tall blue-haired boy interrupts, standing up and raising his hand. Excuse me. I have a question. The stage is yours. On the printout we were provided, it lists 4 faux villains, not 3. If this is a mistake on the part of UA, then I apologize, but that is shameful of Japan's most notable school. And you. The boy turns around, pointing right at him. You have been muttering this entire time. It is very distracting, and if you can't be bothered to take this seriously, then you should leave. A few people snicker. Who does he think he is? All right. Present Mike calls the attention back to him. Great question, examinee. The 4th villain is worth 0 points. Think of it as more of an obstacle. You can fight it if you want, but there'd be no point. You dig? Yes, thank you. The boy sits down. They are not done. Izuku puts his hand under the table, takes a second, and twists it. Let's see how he likes a scorpion on his lap. It only takes a second. Ah! The boy screams, jumping up, brushing his lap furiously. Too late, Izuku dismissed the illusion the second he jumped up. It takes everything to keep the smile off his face. Hey! Izuku calls out. When he has the boy's attention, he puts a finger to his lips. You're being very distracting. More people snicker and laugh, including a snort from right next to him. Izuku whips his head around, but Kaken has a neutral expression on his face. Must have imagined it. The tall boy clears his throat and mutters an apology and sits down, but not before checking around his seat carefully. Well, that's all I got for you all. Present Mike takes over again. So I'll leave you all with this, as General Napoleon Bonaparte once laid down. A true hero is one who overcomes life's misfortunes. Go beyond, plus ultra. A few people call back, including Izuku. Good luck suffering. The gates to the fake city loom over them while Izuku bounces in place trying to distract himself, but it's not working. He's so excited. Robots. He'll get to use his daggers and knives to his heart's content without fear of hurting someone. That's when he spots the nice girl who saved him from falling. He should probably thank her. Izuku takes a step and then he feels it. "Don't touch me," Izuku says without turning around. "Excuse me?" He turns and sees the tall boy again, hand raised. The blue-haired boy composes himself, lowering his hand. "Why are you here? Were you sent by the staff to try and distract us before the test?" "What kind of dash?" "Start." Present Mick's voice booms over them. Izuku doesn't need to be told twice, sprinting through the gates. He's got the right idea. There are no countdowns in real battles, little listeners. Run, run, run. But he's got a sizable lead on the competition. Izuku runs in before 3 robots get in his path. A couple of 2-pointers and a 1-pointer. Hope this works. Izuku conjures 3 throwing knives and whisks them at the villains. Each knife hits dead center and slices through with ease, each robot falling. Yes. He'll look around for his knives later. For now, he turns down an alley, only for a 3-pointer to block his path. Target acquired. Prepare for judgment. Izuku jumps onto the wall of the alley, using it to propel himself over the robot, dodging its attack. The trickster brings a conjured dagger down on the robot, slicing through it like butter. The 3-pointer collapses and explodes in front of him. Izuku laughs, gripping the dagger tighter. "Oh yeah, I can get used to this. I'd say this year's group looks promising. Would you all agree?" Nizu says, sipping a cup of tea with the other teachers in the observation room. There are agreements throughout the room until, "I can't say I'm a fan." Nizu chuckles at Power Loader. "Oh Majima. Don't be a child." "I'm not being a child." Higuri Majima whines, thereby nullifying his point. "I'm just saying, at least the explosion kid leaves some scraps behind for me to recycle. But that one kid at Battle Center leaves nothing behind. Gosh, we have more than enough funds for a few robots." "That's not the point," Majima grumbles. "We do have a good crop this year," Ectoplasm says. "But something isn't quite adding up. That boy there with the green hair. Izuku Midori-no. His file says his quirk is illusion creation. But I've seen him create multiple knives and use them as if they were real. It could be that his quirk description is not accurate. It is, unfortunately, very common." Cementos theorizes. "A theory to solve another day." Nizu happily calls out. "But for now, the real test begins." The principal nods at Snipe, who lifts a glass protector and pushes a big red button. Izuku pants, his hands on his knees. If this test has shown him anything, it's that he has a real lack of mobility. Sure, turning into a dog helped a bit, but not that much. Maybe the next animal he should work on is a cheetah? Since he still can't get any birds to work. But he still felt pretty good. If his math was right, he had 42 points right now. The robots had become a lot more scarce after the first couple of minutes. Add in his lack of mobility and it wasn't a good recipe. Thankfully, he had been able to astral project himself to the top of buildings to gain vantage points and spot robots in the distance. He had also created decoys to distract robots and help other kids a few times, at least when they were too far out of range for a throwing knife. So that made him feel better about everything. Izuku straightens up and is about to go look for more robots when the ground begins to shake below him. What the? A series of explosions ring around the testing center before a massive robot appears, bigger than any of the surrounding buildings. The behemoth crashes its fist into the ground, causing another mini earthquake while obliterating anything near it. The smoke is thick and screams fill the air as terrified kids run for their lives from the 0-pointer. All Izuku can do is stare as the monster of a robot moves toward them all, crushing anything in its path. That's so cool. I want one. Could the dwarves of Nidavellir build something like that? Won't hurt to ask. As much as Izuku would love to gawk at the robot all day, the test is probably almost over, so he should find more robots to... Ow! He stops dead in his tracks. The nice girl. Izuku is running before he realizes it. With a wave of his hand, several decoys appear around him, running beside him, but it doesn't matter, he's more focused than ever. Distract it. They nod and run, trying to get the attention of the robot while Izuku runs up to the girl, who had her foot trapped under some rubble. He stabs a dagger under the slab of concrete and pushes down on the handle to lift it up more. Getting his hands under it, Izuku raises it a bit more. I got it, go. The girl nods and pulls her leg free. With an action that would mortify him later, Izuku picks up the girl, bridal carry, and starts to run. His decoys weren't good enough because the zero-pointer still chases them. Crap, he couldn't outrun it. He needed something bigger to get its attention. He doesn't know if his dad will be proud or angry at what he's about to do. Izuku deploys more decoys just to stop the robot for a couple of seconds while he puts the girl down against the side of a building. I'll distract it long enough for you to get away. Go. Wait dash. She starts but Izuku's already climbing up a nearby fire escape. All the dust and debris on the ground would hinder him. He gets to the roof just as the biggest faux villain is rolling past his decoys. Izuku steps up to the edge. They said to go plus ultra, right? He recalls all decoys and holds his hands in front of him, bending his knees. Izuku pushes more magic into his hands than he's ever done. Green lines envelop his body before all congregating onto his hands. His body screams in protest. His arms shake worse than ever before. He's starting to go numb everywhere but the two appendages he's focusing on. He's never felt more alive. His hands erupt what looks like green flames around them, and light envelopes him, finally getting the attention of the zero-pointer. Izuku screams, releasing the magic and ignoring the blood dripping from his nose. Because next to the building he's on, an exact replica of the zero-pointer appears next to him. Izuku laughs, looking up at by far his biggest creation. I did it. Haha. Every examinee has stopped at the test site, staring wide-eyed as the two giants square off. Nizu cackles maniacally, nearly falling off his chair while teachers leap to their feet in surprise. All Might smiles. Show them what you're made of, young Midoriya. The real faux villain seems to growl at its challenger, rearing its fist back and trying to pummel its new opponent through the face, only for it to go straight through. Izuku grunts, nearly falling to one knee as he pumps magic he didn't even know he had back into his creation, rebuilding it. This wasn't gonna work. He can't hold it much longer. Using whatever he has left, Izuku holds up his hands and pushes. His illusion responds, moving away. And like he had hoped, the real one follows. Izuku holds. And holds. He keeps holding. He's on his knees at this point. Sweat pours down his face. The blood is in free fall from his nose. It's like his arms will tear themselves from his sockets at any moment. But still he keeps going. Once both robots were a fair distance away, his decoy blinking in and out of existence, Izuku lets go. The green flames around his hands extinguish themselves and with them, the rest of his energy. Izuku wipes the blood off his face. He can't hold himself up anymore. Oh, he just realized he's falling. That's right, he was at the edge of the roof. Not exactly a swan dive, but he wonders if Kaken would be happy with this? Wow, his brain goes to weird places when he's about to die. The ground quickly approaches and Izuku can't even brace himself, so he closes his eyes waiting for smash. Instead of the ground, he feels a stinging on his cheek. Izuku cracks his eyes open to see himself floating above the ground. The nice girl had saved him, again. Wow, she'd make a great hero. She barely gets her fingers together, whispering a quiet release. Izuku falls the last small distance to the ground, as does she and the piece of robot she had been floating on. He doesn't really feel the impact, his body is still numb. The greenette pushes himself up to thank her but turns away when he sees her throwing up. Hey, even half-dead, manners are important. Are you okay? He asks once she's done. And me? She responds with a disbelieving giggle. Time's up. Present Mick's voice travels through the city, followed by a horn. Thanks for saving me. Izuku smiles, her blush marks going redder randomly. But if you'll excuse me, he slumps over, letting darkness overtake him.